Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Good evening, Trisha. How we doing, Sally? Terry Robertson's in the house. How you doing, Terry? Steve Shaw, how you doing, my friend? And Steve has been extremely busy on behalf of our entire CFN community. We can't thank you enough for all of the CFN photo edits that you've been doing, buddy. You've been busy. David Craig, same thing, out in the BC coast from our provincial chapter out there in BC. You've been doing some wonderful things as well. Really appreciate all the efforts that Sally and Barry have done with our latest, I would say, member of the CFN community, Dave Helmer. He's opening up a store up in Porcupine. Looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like. But Barry and Sally are up there giving it a nice coat of paint and beautifying the place. Perhaps maybe I might need your services. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Happy Monster Monday, as Steve said. Absolutely. We had some incredible monster fish that were caught and shared on our CFN community page. It's amazing. There's as Jim says all the time, there's fish galore out there. We just got to get out there and catch them. But, there's lots of big fish being shared. That 3-pound perch that was caught down in the States. Holy Hannah. Anyway, the weather is starting to turn for the better. We are seeing some incredible weather, and I would imagine based on the number of viewers that we have, and I can't thank the diehard group that we have here with it, but that is an indication that the weather is getting better. I know people are going to watch later on, but normally right about now we have about 60 of you watching. But that weather, it's going to be tough. We may actually have to put this back an hour just to ensure that we don't miss or leave out all of our CFNers. But yes, it is Ladies Night, Bill. Thanks for that. What a show. We've got a lot of great things to talk about, a lot of great things to share. And I want to make sure that we mention it now. Tomorrow, Mike and I are going to be live for the last installment of all of the prizes for the Winter Fish Fest. So stay tuned to that. We gave away our largest fish, which of course was Bill Allen. Sarah Jinkerson got smallest fish, and we raffled off just a random prize for a youth angler. Wouldn't you know it, Trevor Barnucz won. So we're going to be doing a lot more tomorrow. And a special package came today, which will allow us to do even more. And I'll tell you, Dwayne Bennett from Dynamite Plastics sent a gift pack, and it's not often I can say I have seen a swim bait this size, but that has Horwood Lake Lodge in the CFN Retreat written all over it. I can't wait to try and cast that for a toothy critter up at Horwood. But if you're interested in getting one of your own, reach out to Dynamite Plastics. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Dwayne, thanks so much. And, of course, thanks for all the gift packs that you sent that we're going to be giving away tomorrow, Mike and I. Some incredible stuff. So stay tuned to that. How's Christina doing? Welcome to an amazing network. Yes, absolutely. Scooter Lauber, I'm assuming. Yes, Scooter, absolutely. Scott Berry's in the house. How you doing, Scott? Scotty Too Hottie, right back at you, buddy. No one would know better than yourself. Dave is ordering C4 lures for a store. So really cool what Dave is doing. And I can't it's a true testament to our community. So Dave Helmer, and the name escapes me, but he's starting up a tackle store in the Porcupine area, just outside of Timmins. And he has reached out on behalf of Mike Brazeau, putting him in touch with me to try and get some product. And he is really keened in on a lot of the CFN supporters. So he's going after Yalleye. He's going after Dynamite Plastics. He's going after Shimano. Bait to Go and Outdoor Flavors are going to be putting some stuff in his store. But he's really keen on seeing a lot of CFN stuff in there and supporters of CFN. So I can't think of a better way of expressing my gratitude to our community than having go through that experience. I think it's so cool what we've built here, guys and gals, that you have tackle stores that are now reaching out to us and trying to put products that support our community on their shelves. Good work. That's all I can say. Good work. And to Sally and Barry, who spent the better part of 2 or 3 days repainting the place, kudos to you guys. This is what it's all about. As much as we support our local industry and our tackle shops and tackle producers, we also have to take a moment to remember those who we've lost. And I know Jim and I are going to talk a little bit more about it, but unfortunately we lost. He was a close friend and someone I'm going to miss. We're going to miss his car karaoke. We're going to miss a lot of his great posts, and he provided our community a lot of information and knowledge and shared it very, very freely. But to the Cadeau family, our sincerest wishes and prayers and thoughts go out to your family as they are mourning the loss of the one and only Rob Cadeau. As I said, we have decided to dedicate this show tonight to Rob. And I know it's ladies' night, but it's apropos that we have Lisa Goodier here talking about muskie. Rob would be very appreciative of that, as he was a muskie lover. Rob did some great things in the industry. I can go on and on. I know Jim and I are going to talk more about it, but we lost a good one, and it was a big blow. So I appreciate all of the condolences to the family. I did what I could with that little video on my personal page, and of course I shared it to CFN. But he's not going to be forgotten. I want to tell you one Rob story. I mentioned it in some of the comments, but Rob, I had never fished with Rob. This was my first outing with Rob Cadeau, and we had I think a TV producer with us. We were on Pond Predator charters with Nick Obermonk, and Greg Kuntz was with us, and we were there to shoot some promo. That was the idea, get some promo shots with a tackle producer, and I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, no promotion got done. And as I will tell everybody, it was the most fun I have ever had in a boat on a fishing trip and never catching a single fish. I have never in my life had so much fun, nor have I laughed as hard as I did that day out with Rob. The pair of us, it was literally a stand-up comedian show, going back and forth. It was it was a war of wits. But yeah, it's it was the most fun I've had on a fishing trip, not catching a single fish. In fact, we kind of knew that was how the day was going to end, and we tried to throw everything in the kitchen sink out to try and catch fish. And the more that Rob and I laughed and became unfocused to what it was that we were there for, I think probably the more upset our party got with us, because we were just having way too much fun. And our friendship, we bonded right away that day, and it grew from then on. And I kept in touch with Rob through highs and lows as best I could. I wish I had been a little bit more a part of his life near the end. I was hoping, Jim and I were hoping to get up and see him just to say our goodbyes. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But as I said, to the Cadeau family, on behalf of everyone here at CFN, we dedicate our show tonight to the late Rob Cadeau for all that he's done for our community, our industry, and to each individual. And if you knew Rob and you have good memories about Rob, you hang on to them, because I know I do, and he's not going to be soon forgotten. So again, thanks to everyone. It was a tough pill to swallow, big blow, especially when it's close, right? And this is what our community is. We support each other, and you guys helped me by reaching out with a lot of thoughts and prayers and what have you. So I really appreciate that. So kudos to all of you. Appreciate that. Anyway, I have so much more going on. We have, as I said, the prizes that we're going to be giving away tomorrow with Michael Consul, and the finale to the Winter Fish Fest. Jerseys, Richard Dunlop is doing a fantastic job promoting the heck out of that. So if you're looking for a CFN jersey, reach out to Richard. I know they're readily available, and he's looking to put in another order. So by all means, contact Richard, and he'll point you in the right direction. We are in the midst of launching our first inaugural CFN signature series hoodie. Can't show it to you just yet, but you're really gonna. I think it's gonna be popular. We got to figure out price and how we're gonna do it through Rise. So I got to reach out to Tom. I've reached out to Tom a couple times. I haven't. he's so busy, but I've got to get that figured out so we can figure out the back end of the shop CFN on Rise Apparel, but that will be available on Rise Apparel. So stay tuned to that. It's the first launch, and it's going to be available for walleye season. I'm really hoping, because it has, let's just say, a little bit to do with walleye on the hoodie. Very, very cool. And a good friend Clifford from One Last Cast has helped us put it together. So that's all I'm going to tell you. The rest is going to be unveiled in the coming weeks, and stay tuned to that. Really, really cool. CFN retreat. I know some people have reached out to me. If you are interested in going, I'm not sure if there's room. Please contact Mike Brazeau to find out if there is. I don't know if everyone has paid their deposit. So I know Mike was pretty adamant making sure that, places are locked down with the deposit. So if you are interested in going to the CFN retreat, please contact Mike. If you are given an answer that it's full, please don't be surprised, because last time I checked it was. But keep that in mind. If there's anything else, any other announcements that anybody has, by all means. I'm kind of sidetracked. We have so much going on tonight that I don't have a lot to pass on, but there is a lot happening, a lot of things coming up. For instance, and I just saw JR Paquette come on here. So we are going to be doing a cook-off, a CFN bait to go outdoor flavors cook-off, and there's going to be a prize pack. So in the meantime, before we start to coordinate how we're going to do it logistically and figure everything out, we have some guest chefs that are going to be awarding and grading the dishes. How that's all going to be done, not 100% sure, but the logistics we're working out. But it is going to be a CFN cook-off sponsored by Bait to Go. So it's kind of cool. Yes, it will be awesome, JR, and we appreciate your involvement in it. I see the creativity of our community and how you guys prepare some of your dishes. It doesn't have to be fish. It could be anything. You could do a casserole. You could do a meat recipe. It doesn't matter. As long as it involves Bait to Go outdoor flavors and your creativity. That's it. So stay tuned to that. We'll be launching that in the coming weeks as well. And of course, as I said, I'm working hand in hand with Muskie's Odyssey. That's going to be coming on in April. We're going to be talking to Lisa in regards to that. I'm pretty much done. Prizes. I'd like to donate some Devil's Rock tackle prizes. Rick, You have, and we have 5 prize packs that include your Devil's Rock tackle products. We have the spring fish off that is going to be commencing. Mike and I have to come up with the actual date, but that looks to be end of April, beginning of May. So by all means, I'll reach out to you after the live broadcast, and we'll get our ducks in a row. But I appreciate that. Devil's Rock Tackle have given some great tackle stuff already, some great products already for our Winter Fish Fest, and looks like they're going to do the same for our spring edition. So thanks for that. But yeah, I can't see or think of anything else to talk about. So let's bring in Jim. Jim's going to come in first, and then Lisa and Yvonne will come in after, and we'll do ladies' night. But in the meantime, this is by far my favorite commercial, and it gets, with this weather the way it is, even out west, I know it's nice. Nothing makes me want to get out on the water than this video right here. Big Jim, how you doing, my friend?
What's going on? I'm alive.
Well, that's a good thing. And, oh, yeah, baby. Yes, sir. I can't think of a more apropos thing by Big Jim and to the Shaw family for getting that done for you, buddy.
Thanks so much, guys.
You look handsome. You look good, my friend. You look good. Yes,
I got no hair, so I lost my strength. I went to the gym. I couldn't lift anything.
So unfortunately, we started on a bit of a sad note. Jim, you and I were making plans to hopefully get up there and say our goodbyes to our buddy Rob.
I know.
But it happened so quick. He went downhill so fast, and our industry's lost, our community's lost a good one. Tell us a story, your favorite story about Rob Cadeau.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see him go so fast at the end, but that's the way that shit has a habit of working. And it's tough at the time, but 1,000% of people will agree that it's the best way. I lost my mom to cancer, and it took like 11 months for her to die. Like literally after, from the time that there was no coming back,
yeah,
to the end, it took literally 11 months. And she was about 120 pounds, and when she died, she was like 75.
Oh,
it was not fun, but it's what it is. You move on and you get over it, and it just seems to be in this world that everybody's been through it in some form or another. It's just a horrible thing. But I was thinking the other day about Rob, and a few things came to mind, and then I often felt that I watched Rob sort of mature as an adult, because I knew him forever, and I just saw him come into his own as a human being around him. And I think I really saw it because I wasn't around him a lot, and every time I saw him, there was more to him, and he got better and better. and better. And I think that's what it was. Because I don't know, at first he sort of kept to himself a lot. I know in the beginning when I met him at first, he didn't seem to be the most outgoing guy. And then that just all changed, over the space of a few years. It just all changed, and it's just really, really cool that he had the wonderful life that he had. He had the family support, everything else to it, and I really hope they're doing okay. It's they had a while to realize what was coming, so hopefully it's I don't know whether that's good or bad.
Well, I commend, and I know Rob isn't with us to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway, just in case some of his family members are and do tune in. I commend Rob on a regular basis for taking us down the journey that he did. He didn't hide from it. He knew what the inevitable end was going to be. But
we talked about it often because people were absolutely shocked. Like I did public service announcements in Ottawa, belittling tough guys for not going to get checked for prostate.
Yeah.
Things like that. And I used to do it with the guys on the Shea 106 in Ottawa, Doc and Woody. And it's just horrible shit. And it doesn't discriminate. It just looks out and goes, today it's you. And away it goes, and something like I've got 3 other friends right now actively being treated for prostate cancer. It just, how does this happen? How does someone, you hear them say that they're getting a hold of things, but when it's your buddies, it makes it seem like it's not being, helped along. But you look at me, when I was in the study, there was 60 guys in my study and they're all dead but me. Like, what's the odds of that? Why am I here? Like I said, that's, one thing that I said when I wrote a little thing on Rob's page when he did pass. And I said, like, I would, me, I'm up all hours, stupid time the way I sleep. And I get up and I get the phone. I come back here to work on emails or whatever. And I'd send Rob a heart, just a little red heart in a text. And, 2 minutes later, he'd happen to answer it and he'd come right back and go, thanks, buddy. You could just tell that, and this was long before he was really incapacitated. And I used to, it's funny too, because I'd love to hear him sing a song right now, because whenever he sang, I used to heckle the shit out of him. I'd send him notes, PMs and things, and tell him, oh my God, am I ever happy you got a job in the fishing industry? Because you're never going to make it as a singer and things. I just go that, and the 2 of us would just be like this for fun. It was all fun. It was 100% fun, But probably my best night ever was at the spring fishing show. And he wanted to go for sushi. And there was a bunch of guys going, and they were going down into Toronto. And I'm not going down into Toronto for sushi with a bunch of guys half my age on a Friday night. Or a Saturday. It was Friday or Saturday, I don't remember. But there was a place in Oshawa there, somewhere, or Bowmanville, somebody. No, we went back to Oshawa, I think. I don't remember. But we went to a place, just the 2 of us. We got there, and all the people that were going to Toronto were at this place because somebody had phoned them and said, this is a better place to go. So we all ended up in the same place anyway. And him and I got there late. Most of them were almost done. And he'd never had sushi before. So he said, I don't know what to order. I'm going to feel like a fool. And I said, well, it's better feeling like one and looking like one like you usually do. And we're just sitting there, just jousting each other, right? And this is sober, and whatever else. And I ordered up a bunch of stuff. And I ordered a lot of, everybody thinks that sushi's all fish. Well, it's not. No. There's a lot of stuff that's just a chunk of vegetable with a piece of chicken or a piece of shrimp in it or something, rolled up in rice. And I ordered up a whole bunch of stuff for him. And I ordered up some fish too, some, sashimi and some other stuff. And he looks at me, he goes, I'm not eating that. I said, yes, you are. Because I said, you're going to look funny with me on top of you. Pushed it down your throat. We came for sushi. You're having it. He'd be looking at it. He'd go, what's that? I said, shut up and eat it. And it was like that. And one of the guys came over to the table. He said, I thought you 2 guys were going to get in a fight at the table. I said, he came for sushi. He's having it all. And by the end of the night, he's sitting there and he's holding his belly and he could hardly eat anymore. He was in agony. He was literally in utter agony. He had choked down, so much fish and shrimps and And he said, I didn't know sushi was all this other stuff too. I thought it was just a plate of, like raw fish. He had no concept, eh? Just like me when Dave Chong made me go the first time. And he says, try a piece of raw salmon. And I said, look, I don't like salmon when it's cooked. I'm okay with it, but basically, if there's something else to eat, I'd have it. And he says, try one piece. If you don't like it, you slid over a little side plate. He said, just spit it out on the plate, forget about it. I said, no problem. So I took the piece, I put it in my mouth and give it a couple of chews. And as I'm chewing, my left hand comes out slowly across the table and just pulls the tray over to my side of the table. And now to this day, I'm hooked on it. And I believe Rob was too. Like he wasn't just saying, yeah, it's good because I brought him. And I was hounding him to death, But no, that night was it was just a great time. It's really cool. We talked about going there. Like it would have been last weekend that we went, but we lost him before we got to it.
Yeah.
And I had already told Tammy I was going to go. I said it's going to be a long day, but we'll work out. I just saw that comment there. No, we didn't. Who said that? I'm making notes on coming later.
But was that? Hey, listen, is that the place that you went to? Yvonne just put it up.
No, that's that place I went with Yvonne and Tom and that night too. That wasn't a bad place. That was decent. No, this was a complete different place. It was really a modern place, really bland and just marble walls. It was kind of neat.
But yeah, no,
I will always remember him that way, and it's almost cool that I'm going to remember him the way I saw him the last time.
Amen.
I'm not going to remember him the way he was when he passed.
Yeah. And
I don't know. Some people might not agree with that. They want to go say goodbye or whatever else. I don't need to be there to say goodbye. When they called me and told me that my mom had passed, he asked me if I wanted to come to the hospital, and I sat there and I said no, because I don't want to go see my mom dead.
Yeah.
The last time I saw her, she was giggling. I mean, they had so many drugs in her that, it was just keeping the pain down, that type of thing, because there was nothing left. She didn't even look like a human being anymore. Like it's just horrid shit when you have to live through it. So this way now, I get to remember Rob the way he was, smiling, giggling, laughing. Me, hanging over the table, threatening to beat him, and him with his hands over his head. It's what it is, and nothing can change it now. You just have to be happy.
Yeah.
He would not want anybody sitting here crying.
Yeah.
You have to. It all has to be good. It has to be like a celebration now. They talk about, and that's what it is. I'm happy that we went for sushi.
There you go. No, 100%.
I'm sure there's a million shrimps and salmon weren't happy after when he got into it. He wadding it in a shovel. No.
You're right. We had talked about getting up there last weekend, and as it turned out, he went downhill very quickly, and you could tell by his Facebook posts as you and I, sort of reached out on Messenger and said, "Ooh, here we go. This is the end."
No, he
the end game. Yeah, and the thing is, as I said, I can't say enough about the man for taking us along the journey. He was doing the in-car karaoke all the time. Just having fun. He would check in, let everybody know he was okay. He would go and see his family. I mean, nothing held the guy back. I mean, look at some of the trips that he went on not too long ago. Some just, bucket list trips. Got to see some incredible fish, some incredible scenery, and shared it all with us.
It's really cool that he got to do that too, because most people don't. Like, sure enough, he's gone from us. He's been taken. Yeah. But man, he was blessed for what he got at the end, because most people don't get stuff like that, and that's really cool that he got to do that. And I just like my heart goes out to the family. I just pray that they get through this good, and they end up having a smile on their face when they think about it.
Amen.
way it
Jeanette's
should be.
asking, what's your favorite story, Scotty? Well, I just mentioned it, but truly was there's one that I can't say on live. But maybe one night around the campfire, if we're at a CFN retreat or whatever, yeah, well, I'll tell it to you. It is funny, but it's not appropriate to say here. But as I mentioned, the most fun was the first time that I ever fished with Rob. We literally caught nothing, and by far it rates up there in the top 3 trips that I've had.
He's gone, but a skunk story is a skunk story. Yeah.
But I mean, it got to the point, Jim, where I think he and I both bought into the fact that we weren't going to catch anything. And I know Nick was working his arse off, changing all kinds of he was doing everything to try and get us on fish. You had a guy there that was paying for the charter, so he needed to get some promo shot. Like we were having so much fun. It was just like, you know what? Like, just chalk it up. Like, we're not going to catch anything. But we had a blast. And
could have went to the quarry and went around in circles.
It's one that I can tell. The other one, unfortunately, I'll have to save for another time. But Christina wants to know, have you been tying any jigs lately? Tying anything special? Yeah.
That's too funny. Too funny. Yeah. I've got 200. Well, I'm still working on this, which I showed you last week. I'm still working on this.
Well, you had the grandkids.
There's almost 1,000 there. And when I got that done, I just have pieces of paper and boxes of jig heads ready to tie everywhere. Like I'm looking at like almost 1,500 jigs. It's like the hobby that's like out of control.
But I saw you had the grandkids tying them at one point this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Caroline was up there. They go to a private school, and it was really cool because when they come home, they want to take the uniform off, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as she comes home, the uniform comes off, and the party dress goes on. She's 4 years old, and she lives. Or 5 years old, and she lives in a party dress, whether it's the blue one, the pink one, whatever, the little patent leather shoes, the whole deal. And it's because the kids don't get to express themselves with their clothing. Like clothing's a big deal. Free labor, that's terrible. But I would have kept her here. She was getting good at it. I would have kept her here. But the chain that I have for the other guy that I have, the links were too big for her ankle. She could get out, so I'll have to get a smaller chain to hold her.
Good thing this is a family show, Jim. This is a good thing. Good thing it's a family show.
She texted me. She texted me through her sister, wanting to know when she could come back and play with the fish stuff. And the grandson Axel, he says to me, Papa, I think we should store a lot of these lures in my tackle box.
There's a chip off the old block.
That was his deal. We should store a lot of these lures in it. Because while he was here, I was saying, I don't know where I'm going to put them all. I'm running out of space, to sit them until I get them packaged. But it was funny. Yeah, I know it's really cool to have the grandkids over like that. We hadn't seen them for a while, so we had them over.
Very cool.
It was quite a blast.
We have a special thing coming up on Thursday, you and I, with Tim Allard. Tell us a little bit about what Tim's going to be talking to our community about on Thursday.
Well, what we're going to talk, really get Tim, as you know, Tim gets the interview for all the writing that he does, the who's of the fishing world. And plus he does it all too, because he's not a tournament fisherman or whatever. People don't realize there's a lot of good people out there that don't have anything to do with organized fishing that are absolute crackerjack fishermen. Like if they were to come fish tournaments, a lot of guys wouldn't be happy. Like there's a lot of really good anglers out there. So what Tim's going to do is he's going to walk us through the end of the ice season, and just like that last bit, and into what he would be talking to. He's really got this thing about drop shot and walleyes. He's been writing about it in magazines all over the States and Canada here for us. He's been writing everything. Plus, he wrote the ice fishing book, and Al Lindner said it was the most comprehensive book ever written on ice fishing.
Wow.
So
Wow.
maybe you need to look at a copy. And it's got the real people in it because I only got quoted twice.
Well, I mean, people would suggest that you know a thing or two, Jim. So I'm surprised you're only in there twice. Yeah, Thursday. That'll be at 8:00 or 7:00.
7:30.
7:30. 7:30 this Thursday. Tim Eilert's going to be joining us. Of course, it'll be the last bit of ice fishing, how to target fish, what to target fish, and then, of course, early season walleye. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting the boat unwrapped and getting out myself, Jim. I tell you, this weather is making it very hard to stay indoors.
Yeah, they sent me a message from the marina today and said to me, hey, have you got the electronics and the electric motor and stuff to be installed on the boat yet? And I got to make a move in getting that here. I just hope it's all in stock when they send it because it comes direct from them to me.
Yeah.
I assume they have it all. Or else, maybe if they don't have what I want, they'll stick me in something much higher. I'm pretty fortunate. They'll let me use whatever I want. So it's kind of cool. But I only use the stuff for the one season, and I hardly, I don't use it that much now. I'm usually in boats with other people and things like that. I'll put the boat in the water a dozen times. Maybe it's not what it used to be. Hey, this is Shimano's 100th birthday this year. This is going out there. 100 years, 1921 is when it all started. And you got to go and look up the new website. They have a special anniversary website it'll explain all the, right from the very beginning what they built with all the bicycle parts and the reels and just like it's just incredible what they've done. And the company is like I didn't even realize they employ 11,000 plus people. And they have over 50 facilities. Over 50. And you remember when we were talking about when they had the fire at the plating factory a year or two ago there? And everybody thought, oh, Shimano's done now. Their plating factory's gone. We got 50 built.
Yeah.
It's
And they're worldwide. This is a company that has maintained a level of quality and attention to detail. You and I have talked about it at great length, everything that they put into their stuff. And I was talking to Bob last night, and I'm so appreciative that they have downed the game a bit, but upped it at the same point. When I say that they have allowed our CFN community, and Bob and I talk about it at great length, that, a lot of the products that they are now putting a lot of effort into, allows the weekend warrior, as I say to us, the chance to experience that quality of product, and they put a lot.
Oh yeah, because when they bring in a new feature, they start with the high-end products,
right,
and then they filter it down, and before you know it, you're using a reel that's a quarter the price of the top-end reel. And you've got almost all the same features. There's just manufacturing costs, how things are done, different materials and stuff that make the price difference. But once again, you got to remember, this stuff doesn't come out of a factory that they hire it out to. This comes out of Shimano owned and operated factories. Guys tell me, oh, I saw on my reel it says Malaysia or something like that. Shimano's getting reels done. I said, it's what they do. They build a factory in another country. And it's what they do, they still own the factory. They still run it. There's people from Shimano in the building. It's not that they are just, having a factory somewhere. And when you look at all the parts that they build, the stuff that they build, all the bicycle parts, there's so many other things that they're into. It's absolutely incredible. Like the master catalogs like this. It's crazy what they make.
I know. And to think you've been there for...
No, I've never been to Japan.
No. But you've been at Shimano for a little over a third of their existence, and 38 years, Jim. Congratulations to you, my friend. That is in itself quite a milestone and an achievement. But you've seen this company grow.
Yeah, Scotty, it's a privilege too.
Mm-hmm.
it really is. Like a lot of people, you know, like it's it just to see something so successful and you've got to be part of it and think that you're just that little bit that helped it all go, you know, go along. It's just absolutely incredible. But something that they've brought out that's really, really cool, they just released it a couple of days ago, is they have a new reel out, a new Curado, and it is, I just got these like an hour, I think about an hour ago. So it's a nice little bait casting reel, very small. Now, the designation is BFS, which is Bait Finesse System. It's made specifically for casting small lures.
Makes
made
sense.
For smaller baits, so a guy can use a bait caster. Okay. They even recommend it to be used with a 7'2" medium light rod. They even have the recommendation for that, so it makes it really, really versatile. Has aluminum gears in it. It's got the Hagani body, of course, which is absolutely huge. I just got this. I haven't even, this is like the second time I looked at this. I just put it off the printer.
Jim, why don't I help you out? I've got a video that.
Oh, you got it?
I'm going to show it right now.
Put it up, pal.
Right on, buddy. Good looking product, and right away I wasn't even sure what I was looking at, but when you start to see some of the size of the spool, you realize this is geared towards a smaller presentation. Give us an idea of a reel like this, what you would use it for, Jim.
Something like this. I mean, this will make, I like to fish my flick shakes, and flick shakes are like a stick worm, but they're not as heavy as a lot of the ones. And because they're a lot skinnier, it'll make it much easier to cast those. You won't have to use like one of the little jig head sinkers specifically made for wacky rigging if you don't. Right. We were talking about smaller baits like the TN50. If you wanted to throw it in the summertime, that's actually probably right at the top end of what you'd throw. But I mean, I would even consider this when I go crappie fishing in the springtime now, for the little crankbaits that I toss and little jig spinners and stuff like that we use for them. I'm sure it would be fine if you wanted to use a bait caster for a slip bobber because it's so light. And like, I already had a couple of guys ask me, don't tell my wife it looks sexy. You don't have to worry. So many guys come to me already. I've had several calls and a couple of emails. They say, well, it only holds 50 yards of line. I go, yeah, what's your point? So that's 150 feet. Yeah. Well, I cast 200. You don't cast 200 feet. A football field is 300 feet long. NFL field's 300 feet.
Yeah.
So you just zing your spinnerbait out there, 2/3 the length of that field. The same distance that a quarterback winds up and rips the longest pass that he can. Your spinnerbait's right beside it in the air.
Okay. Well, obviously this reel is not set up for that. This is a fun. Yes.
In this case, it would be your mouth.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, this reel's not set up for that. It's a finesse type of fishing. Obviously, perhaps if someone like Jeanette, who said not really sure how to use a bait caster, this might be a good one to learn with, Jim.
Well, I don't know. If you're using a lot of smaller baits, the whole thing scales down. But one of the things that we always recommend when you start with a bait caster is to use something with a little more weight with it, Yeah. It just makes it a little bit easier because you've got something to keep the line moving. Because, like big casters are fine unless you loosen them off too much and you use something that stops fast. And small lures do have a habit of stopping fast.
Right.
It's like they don't have the weight, eh? But I mean that's I think they're going to sell like hotcakes. I think there's so many guys out there, Jeremy just said there the SLX.
Yeah, especially the DC model, the SLX DC. By far, that is a great entry level, and certainly for one who's learning to use a bait caster, probably one of the best models to do exactly that.
Yeah,
Jim,
actually going to come. He's going to come hopefully this weekend. He wants to come borrow an SLX from me.
Yeah,
and he's thinking about replacing four or five reels that he has that are. He told me they're Shimano reels that are like 25 years old. He just wants to replace them. He's had them serviced a few times.
Yeah,
he just wants to replace them, and he sent me some pictures of them. Some of them there's actually wear on the side from his head. You can see the way the reel into the green. They're Curados.
Wow.
It's actually worn. You can see the different color of green, like the way it's worn around. He's used them so much. So there's a guy that knows he got his money's worth out of it, and he's looking for the next step to go. And he said to me, "I don't have a lot of money to spend on them, but I want to do something where you can get 4 or 5." So they're for $600, he's out the door with 4 of them, basically.
Wow. So, Keith Duster asks a great question with that reel, that Corrado. What rod would you take?
Yes, I would just say they recommended 7'2" medium light rods, and they come up with Zodius and X Pride, and they did really make it feel nice because the new Zodius rods are amazing, and X Prides I don't have to say anymore. They're a little costly. They're a little bit more money, but man, when you use them, as soon as you hook a fish, the feeling of it, it blows your mind. They're just so nice to use.
Right on, buddy. Well, listen, we got to bring the ladies up next. Yvonne and Lisa are in the lobby. We could talk for hours, you and I, about all kinds of things, but we'll see each other again on Thursday, of course, at 7:30 with Tim Allard. Jim, until then, my friend, thanks so much for doing this each and every Monday. We really look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, if anybody is venturing out on the ice out there,
oh yeah,
be careful. And I know there's lots of good ice still. I know there's lots of good ice out there. Like Will Wegman was out fishing on Sunday, and he said he wasn't. I talked to him. He said I wasn't sure when I got there, and he said when he got there he had to walk through snow to get to the ice. You know what I mean? Like it was no melt at the shore. The backyard here, there's no melt at the shore. There's none. There's nothing at all. So it's pretty wild. But everybody have a good time out there. We'll see you Thursday night. Bring your ears and your questions because I'll tell you get Tim. The guy's just a wealth of knowledge.
Right on, buddy. Well, we'll leave you and enter into our next segment. Lisa Goodier wanted me to play this. So, Jim, bon voyage, my friend. We'll
enjoy the ladies.
Yes, sir.
We're talking big fish. We're talking big baits.
Chasing fall giants.
Fish. 10 minutes in, and we got our first giant Ottawa River muskie in the bag. That's a lot bigger fish than what I anticipated to start with. That is a beautiful, thick fish.
A nice fall fish right there. Fish is in the net, and of course, the second the fish is in the net, it really just falls right out of its mouth. It was quite the experience. I'll never forget that day. It changed everything for me.
You never forget your first muskie.
Oh, no. Every detail of that trip I remember for sure.
Fish. Little tail splash on you. Another Ottawa River muskie. Let's get her back in the water. That's exciting when that happens. I love it. That makes that 6-hour drive this morning worth it.
Well, good evening, Yvonne. And
nice, Daddy.
As I could see, you have brought another gem to the show.
Yes.
Talking to Lisa, but before we do, tell us what you've been busy doing.
Schoolwork. I got a couple weeks left in my courses, so it's all like exams and big projects, and that's why we had to change our schedule to them.
Yeah.
Thanks for accommodating me.
Oh, not a problem. Listen, we really appreciate you coming on. And as Christina has mentioned, I do have my OWWA
Awesome.
handy, and it's doing the job. Obviously, with the Muskies Odyssey coming up, and let me just put that overlay up there so we have it, so people can tune in. I know Peter Levecki and the host of his team are putting this together, and of course Lisa is going to be an integral part of it. April 17th and 18th starts at 8:30 a.m., runs to 6 p.m. There are going to be so many seminars, Yvonne.
Yeah.
I saw the outlay today from that Peter sent out. I don't know if you saw it.
No, not yet.
Crap. It's jammed full. I mean,
I know.
Honored to be a part of it. We're going to be doing the female segment. I'm going to be your producer for that, so I'm looking forward to that. You've got some great guests. Lisa, I believe, is Lisa going to be one of them?
Yep. Lisa Goodier, Megan McGregor, Dadson, Samantha Dadson, and Alyssa Lloyd. And I'm facilitating. I'm not I'm a novice muskie angler, so it's nice to have these four ladies are experts. I mean, Lisa's a avid muskie angler and probably the only full-time muskie guide that I know. Megan, we've had on the show. She's very passionate about muskie fishing. It's her preferred species. Samantha's a lure maker with Dadson Blades, her husband. And Alyssa is, we've had her on the show as well, and she fly fishes for muskie too. So she'll talk a little bit about that.
That is so cool. Of course, stay tuned to that because it is evolving, and it is going to be jam full of all kinds of presenters, seminars, and of course there'll be an auction that they'll be running as well. So it's going to be really cool. Any news or updates or things that are coming up in OWA world?
Well, we can't have in-person events still. I mean, we know we know why.
Absolutely.
And but we have been having monthly guest speakers. We had earlier this month Jason Barnucz, who spoke about pan fishing and like that transition between winter and open water seasons. I am going to have I'd say early to mid-April. We're going to have a guest speaker on steelhead fishing. So I don't have, it's one of two people. I haven't got confirmation yet. And someone, I noticed in the comments about catfishing, and I have not yet, I'm going to reach out to Todd Longley in Manitoba.
Cool.
To see if he would be our guest speaker in May to talk about catfishing. He's Shimano field staff as well. And
the rock star, the unofficial rock star, I tell you.
The rock and roll fisherman. Yes,
I love. He's quite a cat. I haven't gotten to know him that well on Facebook, but I follow him, and he's a riot. He's an absolute riot. So that should be a great show.
He was the recipient of the Rick Amesbury Award of Excellence last year, and I unfortunately I wish I had been there for the ceremony. He had an incredible story to tell about his upbringing and overcoming challenges in his life, and I hear it was very, very moving. So I don't know, hopefully maybe he'll talk a little bit about that, but definitely if I ever had the opportunity to go catfishing, I would book a trip with him.
Absolutely. And if you do get the opportunity or are looking to catch a trophy catfish, Longley's your guy. He catches some giants out there in Manitoba. Absolute giants. Christina wants to know how your maple syrup turned out.
We boiled all weekend. We boiled today. We'll be boiling tomorrow. We've just pulled the buckets off the trees. There's a lot of sap running still, but it's a lot of work too. And like, we don't really eat a lot of it. We don't, make French toast. Like, we make French toast once in a while, but it's not something we eat regularly. So we mostly give our stuff away to family and friends, put little bottles in like Christmas gifts and things like that. But the first batch, and it was the same with last year, it's got this really unique buttery flavor. and it's always that first boil, and it just smells so great. And we had a gazebo built last year, so we've got this outdoor cooker that someone built out of stainless steel for Tom, and we've got a new finishing pan, and you got to have a rum and coke. If it come out boiling, you have to have a rum and coke. That's traditional. So we had a couple.
That's awesome. Good stories. Good times. What do you, I mean, with the weather the way it is, Yvonne, I'm sure you're just like most jonesing to get out on the soft water, get the shrink wrap off the boat and wet a line. I can't wait myself. It's teasing us right now because the weekend doesn't look that great. But what are you looking and can't wait to target as your first fish in the soft water season?
It's a real toss-up. Like, if I can get safely to Simcoe, I want to go perch fishing for sure. It's probably like late April. And crappie, we got spots on Lowborough for crappie. So those are definitely two of our favorites, springtime. And where we are here in Zone 18, pike opens on the second Saturday in May. Pike and walleye open in that same time. So we have a couple of lakes here that are really good pike fisheries. And they're always good for shore lunch or fish fries or whatever.
Cool. Have you been out to the Muskie Factory, which is the Ottawa River?
No, I haven't. The Ontario Women Anglers did a couple days of intro to muskie fishing with the Kawartha Lakes chapter of Muskies Canada. And last year we were making arrangements with the Ottawa chapter to do a similar thing. But of course, COVID canceled that. And this year, I don't think that we're going to be running it with Ottawa just because of scheduling. Like, September just seems to be a really busy month. Again, we don't know what we're going to be able to do, but usually we have the OFAH Women's Outdoor Weekend that we're at. We've booked a weekend up at French River at Totem Point Lodge. That was postponed from last year.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's just, we don't know anything until closer to the time. Like, we're going to do some virtual events again, like social distancing type tournaments. But I don't know when we'll be able to do in person.
You're right. And it's unfortunate to hear too, that our numbers are going the wrong way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I would digress and I would not want to do it here on a live, but we got to get this right. Like, enough's enough. I can't see another summer being lost for our community, our anglers, and our outfitters, our lodges, our charters, our guides. I mean, come on. They can't go another summer without it's hard to even think about. Speaking of guides, Lisa is a guide herself. Tell us a little bit about Lisa before we bring her in.
Oh, sorry. I was reading one of the comments from Jason about maple syrup. Lisa, I've met a number of times at shows primarily. She volunteers and does work with Lawrence Gunther with Bluefish. And she works with John Anderson as a guide at the, I wrote it down here, Ottawa Muskie River Factory. I've never fished the Ottawa for muskie. I definitely would like to go up. I would love to be on the boat with her. I think it would be an awesome trip. I've never fished with John either, but I think that she also is involved with the bait making part of the Muskie Factory, and it's called Muskie Factory Baits. And so they have a business where they make a sort of various different muskie baits. Very, very lovely lady. I'm actually doing an article on ladies in muskie fishing for Big Jim's magazine. And that's going to be in the next issue, I guess the spring issue. And I've interviewed Lisa and a couple of other ladies. So I'm looking forward to writing that or finishing writing that. But yeah, lovely lady, very, very humble, extremely talented when it comes to angling. And just when you speak to her about muskie fishing, just so passionate. So looking forward to having her on the show today.
Well, she's blushing right now, but let's bring her in from the lobby. She's got quite the trophy case behind her.
There
Lisa, how
she
you
is.
doing?
Thank you for the kind words.
Well, as I said, I've never met you before, and as I always do when Yvonne shares who it is that's going to be the next guest, I try to do a little bit of research on your bio, some of your background. You've been a busy muskie angler, and you've appeared in that TV show with Tom. Is it Tom?
Brent Bochuk.
Brent,
Yes.
Brent, yes. But you've also done a few other things, and fishing with the one and only John Anderson. Holy Hannah, what a wealth of knowledge you've taken in, because I'm sure he's forgotten more than some of us know about muskie.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to have a mentor like John is just an unbelievable opportunity, and so I jumped at it when I had the chance.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Yvonne. I know you've got a million questions you want to ask.
Before we get going, Yvonne, if you don't mind, I just actually wanted to share a quick story about Rob Cadeau. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity. I was a brand new guide, and John called me up and said, you know, Lisa, I got a charter for you. And I said, okay, great. And he's like, it's Rob Cadeau. And I'm like, wait, you want me to guide a guide? You know, Rob Cadeau. And anyways, long story short, from the second we got on the boat, you know, he was one of those guys that just, you felt like you'd known him forever, you know?
Right.
So warm, so funny. I can tell you, I have never laughed so much in one day on the boat. I can't tell you any of the jokes because they were all completely inappropriate, but we laughed from beginning to end. And one thing that really stuck with me is he'd actually just got back from the SUIC headquarters in the States. He was a SUIC pro staffer, and he had this absolutely beautiful, brand new at the time, 14-inch Franken SUIC, was not even released to the public yet. And of course, I'm just like, whoa, like this is the coolest bait I've ever seen. And he's like, well, do you want to use it? And I'm like, yeah. So I casted that thing all day, and it was a tough day on the water. Actually, like there was nothing going. The fish were shut down, and we were there with his buddy Paul too, who's awesome guy as well. We get back to the launch, you know, gave him a hug. It was so great to meet him. And I turn around, and what does he do? He hands me brand new Franken SUIC and says, it's yours. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, you just got this. It's not even released. And he's like, I want you to have it. And, like, you can see from the wear on this thing, man, I tell you, the day I have to retire this, I'm probably going to cry, but I tell you, it's going right into a frame, you know? Like, what a generous, awesome guy. Impacted my life in one day, you know?
He definitely was. And as you just so eloquently showed, he literally would give the shirt off his back. But funny enough that we share the similar story. We had exactly the same kind of outing. I don't know what it was when Rob and I got together. The fish, it was Lake St. Clair. How do you go out to Lake St. Clair and not catch a muskie, especially in and I don't know. We didn't, but it rates up there in my top 3 trips of having as much fun as we did and not catching a single fish. So I'm glad you shared this something similar.
Yeah, when I interviewed 3 ladies for Big Jim's article. Lisa is one of them, Megan McGregor and Erin Wilson. And I was just fascinated by all the different lures that she has in the background. And I guess we could start off talking a little bit about the Muskie Bait Factory. And I know you said that you make some of the leaders right now, but you're looking to get into the lure making part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. You know, as a guide, specifically a muskie guide, you know, our season is pretty short. It's only 4 months. So you gotta find ways to make ends meet when you're not guiding. And so John's been slowly introducing me to all the different aspects of the bait business. One is the leaders, which we actually I don't know if you'll be able to see this here, but we kind of have a unique feature on our leader where we have a heavy duty clear loop protector. So a lot of leaders are using a coil style, and it tends to break down over time. So yeah, we're really excited about our new leader that they're making this year. And yeah, other than that, eventually I'll start making the inlines. You can see there's quite a few of those behind me there. Blades. Yeah, I believe it or not, that's probably only about half. It's terrible. Like, this is the thing with us muskie nuts. Like, it's not even just the fishing, it's the collecting, it's the whole thing, you know. And Yeah, we're pretty hardcore group.
Can you tell us a little bit about just how you started in fishing? What I know you and I have talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but and then how you got into muskie fishing and then the guiding part of it.
Mm-hmm. So, when I was younger, I fished a bit with my dad, but we moved around Canada so much that we never really kind of got onto one species or, like, especially I think, and this is what's crazy to me, when we lived in New Brunswick for the longest, I consider that to be home. And I hardly fished when I was out there. And now I look back at that and go, what? All that opportunity to fish all those incredible species out there. And I really just didn't. And believe it or not, my previous career was actually, I worked in retail management for Princess Auto actually for almost 14 years. And I moved around the country a lot with that job. And that's how I ended up in Ottawa. And of course, as soon as I got to Ottawa, I just felt this like instant connection to the river. And I started, getting into fishing hardcore and bought this stupid little plastic boat off Kijiji and broke down once on the Ottawa River, got stranded and realized, okay, this is not cool. Traded that in for a 12-foot tinny. My passion kept growing. I ended up volunteering for, as you mentioned, Lawrence, at Bluefish Canada, which is another huge passion for me. And so through that work, I ended up getting reconnected back to John, who 10 years, almost 10 years ago now, my girlfriend had surprised me with a guided trip to go out fishing with John. And that day changed my life. Wow. Crazy story on how that, I ended up breaking his fishing rod, a $500 Tranks. But the whole day, the whole experience just completely changed my life and just reignited this passion in me. And I just knew, that I wasn't happy in retail. It wasn't for me. And I wanted to just go for it. I wanted to do something that I was passionate about. So like I said, through my work with Lawrence, I was reconnecting with John at the shows. And one day Lawrence just said to John, like, why doesn't she guide for you? And we started having those conversations. And of course, that started some intensive training because John, everything about the Muskie Factory is that, we really want to be a premium guiding service. Muskies are such a incredible fish and a hard fish to catch. The fish of 10,000 casts is the folklore around it. And so he put me through my paces. He he made me work for it. And honestly, like I said, I mentioned before, I'm so lucky to have him as a mentor. And here I am today, full-time guide, living the dream, happy.
So when we spoke earlier about the magazine article, both you and I had talked a bit about female muskie guides. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned, some in the States, and you might know a few part-time in Ontario or Canada, but really, there really aren't many female muskie guides out there.
Yeah, John says you're the most experienced female muskie guide in Canada, and I'm not really sure if that's a compliment because it's just me as far as I know, but that's okay. There's so many people getting into muskie fishing now, and especially since COVID, right, with fishing licenses up, the way they are, and even just from the social media aspect of it over the winter, being able to, people have just went hardcore learning about what is this all about. And I think next year, especially, we're going to notice another huge jump into the fishing scene.
I hope so. Yep.
Christina has a question, Lisa, and obviously the Ottawa River provides an incredible muskie fishery. Mm-hmm. But is there a bucket list for you that you would love to get to one day that you haven't been to target muskie?
I've got so many, I don't even know where to start. But honestly, Lake of the Woods is, famous. It's incredible. I think just how remote it is too is a really cool thing, and how big it is. It's a whole nother world, It's I've actually had customers who I've guided who've been up there for 5 days with a guide and not caught a fish. So, it can be a very difficult fishery compared to somewhere like St. Clair, where literally you're trolling, you can catch 6 in a day. I kind of feel like on the Ottawa, it's a world-class muskie fishery. It's not safe there. It's not the same type of fishing, you know. So there are some days we grind hard for one chance at a fish, you know. But I think to me that's what's so exciting about muskie. It's not guaranteed. You gotta work your butt off, and when you do get a fish, it's so special. You know, it really is a special moment, especially. And I gotta say, guiding, that's probably one of my most favorite moments. When I get someone who has never even picked up a bait caster before, and by the end of the day they're casting like a pro and they get a fish. Like, to me, there's nothing more rewarding than that. You know.
Now, sorry, Yvonne, one other question, and Sean, you touched on it here. Great question. On St. Clair, it's more of a trolling type presentation for catching muskie. Are you casting just as much as you're trolling on the Ottawa, or is there one more of the other?
Yeah, so I would say about 80% of the year, we're fishing shallow. When I say shallow, I'm saying less than 10 feet of water. So, and my preference, honestly, is casting. You know, nothing against the trollers, but for me, you know, holding the rod, doing the work, getting the hook set is such a huge part of that moment. And for us, especially on the Ottawa, you know, we do have a tannin stain water. It is a bit darker, and for that reason, about 50% of our fish are actually caught within 10 feet of the side of the boat. So, you know, you work hard. You know, muskies as an apex predator, they're aggressive. They'll follow your lure right in. And so sometimes you got to work hard, do your figure eights, and you can catch that fish right there at the side of the boat. And there is nothing like a figure eight fish. You know, they're just really not in any other kind of fishing that you can do. So, yeah, I'm a caster. But hey, the thing is, when you're chucking, you know, 10, 12, 14-inch baits and like at the same time 12-ounce baits all day long with a 8.5-foot rod and a big 400 tranks, you've got to take your trolling breaks. And even if it's just for half an hour while you eat or while you take a quick break, you got to do it. And then some days, you know, when things are a little tougher, you got to cover water. So those days, you know, especially if I recognize people are struggling to cast, I don't want to kill them, you know. So, so we troll where we have to, and but definitely I'm a caster.
And so when you're not muskie fishing, and someone asked this in the chat, are there other species that you like to target?
Oh, we joke in the muskie world, you know.
Yeah. Bass anglers.
Well, everything else is just bait. I know this is probably not the place to say that, but hey. But no, you know, honestly, it's one of the things that I'm really pushing myself on, is because we get so focused in on the one thing. But and it's on my list of goals for the year, is to push myself to do more multi-species angling, because it's all related. You know, if you can, Jim Sarek, his famous line is, you find the dinner, you find the diner. So if you can understand the patterns of the bait fish and the other species, you know, then you're a better muskie angler, because you're understanding the seasonal changes at a deeper level, you know?
Makes sense. Absolute sense. Richard Dunlap has a question. I'm sure I hope you can count on one hand how many 50-inch fish you've managed to catch.
Oh, that's an easy one for me, actually.
So more than one hand, maybe a couple.
No, it's just the one, actually, honestly. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and this is the other thing too, because everybody, as soon as I get on the boat, first thing people ask me, you know, is, you're not going to cast with us, and generally, no, I don't. You know, I'm so focused on reading my electronics, making sure they're casting efficiently, that they're finishing at the side of the boat. I'm switching lures. I'm constantly, you know, like, it's very rare that I actually fish. Generally, I'm actually only fishing if we take kids out, you know, and I think, hey, if I hooked a fish, I could hand the rod off. You know, if it's a situation like that, I definitely will, because it brings more to the overall experience for a family. But for the most part, I actually don't get a lot of chance to fish, which people are shocked about. But my personal best, I think you can see both sides of it in the background. The privilege of catching that fish with two awesome people, Mike Spratt from Muskie Factory Baits, John's partner, but also Lawrence Gunther, of course, another huge mentor in my life, and a big part of the reason why I'm sitting here with you now. So that fish was a special fish. Not only was it my biggest fish, but it was also my first spotted muskie. you don't get a lot of spotteds on the Ottawa River, and actually that one I caught on the St. Lawrence. So it was very special.
I have to ask you a question when it comes to being a guide.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, in your opinion, because you just touched on it, and sometimes I hear different varying degrees of opinions when it comes to this question, is it disrespectful for the guide to fish with a client on the boat, or should a guide ask if it's
Right.
okay to fish?
Good question.
Yeah, and just from a couple of mentors that I've had, if you're familiar with Wally Robbins, writes for Outdoor Canada.
Yeah.
He's good friends with John. He's another person who's been mentoring me throughout this, and he's been with guides, all over the world. And so it's really neat because he gave me a different perspective of what his expectation is as a customer or a guide, And to me, I'm there to make sure that everything that they do is as efficient as possible, and to put them in the best place that I can to get them a fish, And for me, like I said, there's the odd time where I really, people want me to fish. They're like, can you cast with us? Because they want to see, or they want, even my strategy on how I'm working baits, that kind of thing. So if people ask me to, absolutely 100% I'm all in. But otherwise, my view is that you should really be focusing on the clients 100% of the time.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the exact same thing when the question was brought up, but like my husband Tom, he guides in the summer. He does not fish. When he does shore lunches and they haven't brought any fish in and they need a couple, that's the only time he'll fish, because like you said, you've got a paying client and it's your job to put on fish, and especially muskie fishing. I mean, how would they feel if you hooked into a muskie, right? And that's their day out, right? They're the ones to catch fish. I had a personal story. I went down to the States, and they had a guide, and there was a pontoon, and he took like 6 of us out. And I had never, obviously, my first time there. And so we're all fishing, and he's running the boat, and he's fishing too. And then like I would break off, or someone would need retied, or someone had, and he was put up like we were putting him out, like interrupting his fishing. I'd never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like an inconvenience for us to be fishing and need help.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty self-sufficient, but it was a different type of fishing we were doing. So yeah, it didn't go over well with me.
Yeah. I've had a couple of times. I remember I took these 2 guys out. They were great guys, and I worked them hard, and it was only a half day. And by noon, like they were like in so much physical pain, but they wanted it so bad. And so like, the 5 hours was up, and I said, "Oh guys, listen, I want to give you another hour. I really want to give you every chance. Like, just give me another hour. Come on, keep casting. And there was a half an hour left, and they're like, "Can you just cast with us?" And I said, okay. And sure enough, my second cast of the day, and I caught a fish. And I had, it's one of those situations where they're like, of course they held the fish, and we'll just tell our friends we caught it trolling. But you know what? Honestly, when you're muskie fishing, we do consider it to be the boat's fish. You're all working hard as a team and a group, and you've got someone who's scouting with blades, someone who's maybe chucking some rubber. You're figuring out what's working, and even just the netting process, honestly, is teamwork. So it's the fish's boat or team. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's something that Mike and I struggle with when we run the CFN fish off. Fish handling, of course,
Yeah.
And you can't take the human element out of it, because, when you hook into a 50-inch muskie, you're excited. And sometimes you're not focused on the health of the fish as much as you should be. But just as you mentioned, and we try to stress this is why we love the team aspect to the CFN fish off, because if you are going to be landing a fish of that size, you need an extra set of hands. Is there any helpful hints that you can help our CFN fish offers when it comes to handle and care practices when dealing with muskie?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because people are often surprised how sensitive muskies are to angling. They're so closely related to pike. And when you think of pike, you literally, the second they hit the water, boom, they're gone, right? but it's completely different with a muskie, and they stress so easily. One thing I will say, first and foremost, the most important thing to do is target them with appropriate gear. Because if you're trying to target them with bass stuff, you're going to overstress them. They're going to build up lactic acid. And what a lot of people don't realize is, even though you healthily release a fish, if it's at the point where it has petechial hemorrhaging, which is when the little blood cells start to go on the side of the fish, you can get what's called a delayed mortality, and they can actually die up to 24 hours later when you think you've released it healthily. So it's super important that you have the right gear, a heavy rod, heavy reel, 80 to 100 pound Power Pro. Your release tools are crucial. If the hooks are at all questionable about where they are in the fish, I don't try to pry it out. All I do is cut my hooks. A hook is $1, and I'd rather spend $100 on hooks every year than think that I had the hand of losing a fish from the way that I looked after it. We've also just ordered a new tool this year from the Muskie factory, and you've probably heard of something called a Grab It before. They make them for bass. It's like a pistol gripped hook grabber.
Yeah.
We've just ordered one that's actually 20 inches long. So the idea is, if it's a smaller fish, or if the water temps are really high, because they don't do well with high water temps, what you can do is actually, while the fish is still in the water, you can reach down and unhook it without even having to net it. So, especially for bass or walleye guys, because you're catching a ton of muskies incidentally, and sometimes the people say it's like a pain. So that would be a great tool to have, because you can just reach down. You don't have the big net with you. You can unhook it and let the fish go. But the net itself, you mentioned, is crucial. You need to have a big enough net. It needs to have a rubberized coating, because if fish start thrashing around in the older style, nylon nets and stuff, it splits their fins. It does a whole bunch of unnecessary damage. And we use the net like a live well. So, once all the excitement's done, we leave the fish in the net for a minute, let it sit while we're getting ready for our picture. And the fish only comes out for, I want to keep it to under 10 seconds. And there are times where I'll have a conversation with a guest and say, what, the water temp's at 80. I'm not liking the look of this fish. We need to just release it in the water. And I've never had someone say, no, I'm taking it out for a picture. But there's still things you can do. I can still take pictures of that person releasing it in the water. Got that memory for life, Yeah.
Absolutely. A bunch of questions have come up here. Steve Shaw's asking, when it comes to leader and leader material. Obviously, the steel leaders have been the more traditional. Now we're starting to see the titanium come into play, and of course, fluorocarbon. Is there a leader that you would prefer using a specific bait, or do you just use one primarily?
Yeah, well, for guiding, to keep it simple, we're always using just the fluorocarbons. But if I'm, going to if I've got someone who's super experienced, and they're really good at working glide baits, I'll often switch over to a solid wire leader instead, because it really helps with the action of getting that side to side movement that you want. But for the most part, where we're guiding, we stick with the straight fluorocarbon. These ones here that we're using, it's actually Seaguar fluorocarbon, 150 pounds. And we're just currently actually in the process. We're going to upgrade again, just because we like to do things as good as we can. And we're going to go to the Seaguar Premier, which is the same diameter, but is actually rated for 170 pounds. So that's anything over 150 is good to make if you're making your own leaders, though.
I look in the back of Yvonne, and like that's like what I make in a year, hanging on the back wall. That's my salary right there.
So saying that, you said you have favorite baits.
Oh yeah. Well, I already showed you my Frank and Civic. Thank you, Bob. But blades, especially on the auto in the summertime, we're throwing blades about 80% of the time. This is a brand new bait. I haven't thrown yet, but I absolutely cannot wait to throw. It's something new that we're trying this year. So we can see it. So it's a staggered blade. So we've actually got one size, as you can see, one blade is significantly bigger than the other. One's a 10, one's a mag 8. So the thing with blades is that the fish, come August, have literally seen about 100 blades already. So anything you can do to change the profile or the sound or the vibration that the blade gives off makes a huge difference. So this is one that's going to be very, very helpful. The other thing that was a game changer for me last year was the hybrids. We started selling a spinnerbait. Now, of course, with muskie and spinnerbaits, a lot of them are single hook, and it just doesn't work as well because the mouths are pretty much all cartilage. And when you get one shot a day, you need that treble hook. So our spinnerbaits, I don't know if you can see here.
Holy jump!
Yeah, that is the bigger size, but it's got 2 trebles on it, and these blades just absolutely thump. So, and one tactic that I was using a lot last year with the hybrids was actually fishing them in the pitch black. Something about the vibration, and they would just track it and hit it right at the side of the boat. It was a great tool for me last year.
Wow, for all of us who have arthritis in our shoulders, just looking at trying to pitch that, holy Hannah.
Yeah, for sure. For that one specifically, for the hybrids, believe it or not, the hybrids pull harder with the smaller little blades than the inlines do with 10s. So I'm using the regular tranks, not the high gear for sure on that one. Got to winch it in.
Incredible. Now, all your products that you provide through the Muskie Factory Baits is available on this website, correct? That you.
Yep. So even if you go to our guiding site, so it's Ottawa River muskiefactory.com, there's a link to muskiefactorybaits.ca.
Right on.
Okay.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, Lisa, and doing this. And as always, Yvonne, you again, the bar has been set higher. We will be talking again at the Muskie Odyssey in April. I look forward to that. But as I said, Lisa, thanks so much for doing this tonight. And if you want to know anything more about Lisa and some of the baits that are available, or perhaps maybe booking your own session with only, by all means, go over to the website that has been provided and do exactly that. But thanks, Lisa, on behalf of all of us here at CFN. We really appreciate you spending this hour with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. I just wanted to just quickly say thank you to Brent Bochuk too from Setting the Hook TV and Dan from Live to Fish. That episode that we saw the clip for earlier is getting released next Monday on their YouTube channel, Setting the Hook TV with Brent Bochuk. So make sure you check that out.
Right on. Appreciate it. Have yourself a great night.
Thank you, Scotty.
Well, Yvonne, as always, you brought another great guest.
A wonderful lady.
That is just the prelim to what you're going to experience if you do happen to join us on that weekend in April at Muskie Odyssey, because it's going to be Lisa and a whole bunch of more seminars. And I tell you, just a wealth of muskie information that's going to be shared.
And as always, I do have a giveaway. It's a Ontario Women Anglers ball cap and a tackle tray full of plastics. And I will post a question based on her interview tonight or her appearance. And I'll probably have the draw on Friday.
Very cool.
I'll post that. I'll send it to you for CFN.
Right on. Well, listen, we really appreciate all you do for us, and these ladies segments that we do once a month. I know Christina's one, but there's many others that really appreciate the work that you do, not only in that, but everything else behind the scenes. So, Yvonne, keep up the great work. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us.
Very welcome, Scotty. Have a great night, and I will be staying online to watch the rest of the show.
Right on. Cool. Take care, Yvonne. All right, we're going to be bringing in Lawrence Gunther, but he wanted me to play this video before we did, and I want to thank Lisa for making it available to me. Very interesting, moving, to say the least. Have a look.
You know, we've been in this town, Uranium City, and driving around, and I've been exploring things with you, and there's nothing here. I hear a raven, I hear an eagle, I hear a lot of flies, and I hear wind in the trees. This was a town of 5,000 people, and it's the kind of town I grew up in, and I feel this tremendous sense of loss, of being in a place at the wrong time. And feeling disconnected, you know, it's not a,
Good evening, Lawrence. I hate starting your segment on kind of, but you could tell that was an emotional time for you. Oh, your mic isn't on, Lawrence. You've shut us. Yes, you've shut us off. You got to start the sign language. But yeah, that segment, while you're figuring that out, Uranium City, if anybody doesn't know, it was a booming metropolis. I shouldn't say that, but it was in northern Saskatchewan on the shores of Lake Athabasca. And of course, they were mining uranium, very popular back in the day. Of course, it was a huge part of the Saskatchewan economy. And it was a city that grew. But, now you're on?
Yep.
That was a moving segment, dude. You could tell that you were overwhelmed with that.
We weren't expecting to be able to go there. It was quite a distance from where we were staying, where we were filming on Lake Athabasca. And Lake Athabasca is the ninth largest lake in Canada. It's about 110 miles from east to west and about 100 miles from north to south. It stretches across the northern part of Alberta and Saskatchewan right into the Northwest Territories. And at that northwest and northeast end of the lake is where all the uranium mines were in Saskatchewan. And Uranium City was kind of the heart of the uranium mining industry back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So this was a booming city, right? Absolutely booming. And then, the need for uranium just dried up. People were turning away from nuclear bombs. We had peace treaties, and we had no one was building more reactors. So it was a glut of uranium on the market, and mines just started shutting down in Canada, uranium mines. And when I went up there, they counted 80 uranium mines that had been abandoned. Just, companies went bankrupt and they leave, right? So, and this city was bankrupt. And now the mayor came and picked us up at the boat launch. We drove over there with a boat. I contacted him by satellite phone. At that point, there were 6 people left living in the town. The mayor owned just about everything. He was hoping it would come back someday. And he drove us in. He showed us some things. He said that he told us a lot that he would not repeat on camera. And then he let us use an old Suburban. We were just going to walk around, and he gave us an old Suburban to drive around. And we just explored this old town and went into schools and houses. And everything was just the hospital. I mean, it was a perfectly working town. Just shut down. And it was absolutely tragic. I showed this documentary at a film festival in Windsor, Ontario, and this man came up to me afterwards and he said, I grew up in that town. My father was a miner, and me and my brothers and sisters, we lived in that town, and my baby brother is buried in that town. He died at age 2. And we had a good time. I ended up bringing him on Bluefish Radio, and then his daughter contacted me, and she wrote for HuffPost Canada, and we wrote about that. But it's World Water Day today. It's World Water Day, which is why I wanted to show this this piece from the documentary What Lies Below that's coming out on April 15th on our Bluefish Canada YouTube page on April 15th. This is one of the 10 stories, and this is about water contamination. This story is about water contamination and what's going into that lake and the other lakes around there, and the rivers and the ground, and blowing into the forests and the trees. Because, when you clean up a mine, you're taking, the buildings down, you're taking you're putting up fences, but what do you do with all the slag heaps? What do you do with the tailings ponds? You can't make that disappear. And that's all the uranium that was brought up from deep down and left on top. And it's just there in the environment, blowing around. It's dust. It's soaking into the water. It's going into the water table. It's washing into the lake. It's just absolutely astonishing that we have this mess that's going to be around for about 250,000 years.
And uranium, let's face it, even in its raw form, is a hazardous component. And as it starts to break apart, it becomes even more of a concern. And now that we have these mines and all of this uranium that was not mined but is still in some of these abandoned mine shafts, it is concerning. And when you get up to the northern part of Saskatchewan, you truly believe, you get the feeling anyway, that you're in God's country. Like, this is untouched land. And then you see Uranium City and you see Lake Athabasca, and you're reminded of how man's imprint and what seemed to be a good idea at the time can have long-lasting, horrifying results. And we have to be better at it. And that's why we're so concerned about things that are going on in Alberta with the coal mining. Once you go down that road, it's hard to come back.
Yeah, it is. It is hard. We release things, these forever chemicals and into the environment that were never meant to be released into the environment. And they just last and last and last. I said to the mayor, they started putting up signs. First of all, he said also one of the big things was just people who lived up there were recycling the material from the mining buildings. They were taking down mining buildings and moving it and building shacks and barns and garages out of the plywood and the 2x4s and the windows, everything they could, grab. It was just good material, good quality material. They weren't going to let it see it go away. So people were using it.
Yeah.
And they were also taking the slag heaps away and using it for gravel for their driveways. So can you imagine making your driveway out of, radioactive gravel? That's what people were doing. And then they started putting up signs, these radiation signs, warning, stay away. And I asked the mayor, I said, how long will that sign have to stay up for? And he goes, a couple 100,000 years, I guess, It's just, this is just going to go on and on and on. And yet nature is extremely resilient. And, but you wonder, nature persists and nature recovers, but there's going to be this opposition to the full recovery, and there's going to be prices to pay for nature's going to pay the price on this for a long time to come. Well,
we see it over in Chernobyl. Let's be honest. I mean, that was probably one of the most catastrophic nuclear events that happened in recent years, and we're showing it's showing signs, as you've mentioned, that nature is finding a way to adapt and evolve. But it is scary. Now, Christina has a question. When is this going to be one episode or a series of episodes when it's released in April?
79-minute documentary, full blow, 10 stories, back to back to back. It's all linked together with a theme as best I could. But really, the theme is people who live by them from the water, who have concerns about the water, and just, talking to them and having them, give them a voice to talk about what they're experiencing and what they're dealing with. And 79 minutes back to back. And and then once it goes live, you can watch it. It'll be there. But we're hoping to make it a little bit of a celebration. This will be the first time it's been made available in an unlicensed way where you don't have to pay to see it. So right. It's good. It should be fun.
Very cool. And just to give a little bit more of a backstory with Uranium City, back in the day, I want to say that the population of Uranium City was close to 100,000 people. Was it not?
I think it was maybe 10,000 at the peak.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the whole area, if you look at all the area, Uranium City was just one city. There was many other towns and mine sites, and some of the mines created their own bunk houses and their own residential, so there was a lot of people involved in this mining project. You're probably right, about 100,000 people were involved with the mining and the whole industry up there. And
then all of a sudden it shrunk down to what is left now, which is a mayor and the post office, and I think that's about it, isn't it?
The hospital closed a couple months before we went up. There was 2 nurses working there, and that closed. The school had been closed. There was, I think, 6 people, and 4 of them looked homeless. I don't know. There wasn't really. I mean, you could just live there. There was nothing stopping you from living there. It's just. Yeah, if you had nowhere else to go, I guess, right? But it was amazing. When the mine shut, the man, he told me, he said, that lived there, and he said just overnight, everyone just loaded up whatever they could in their vehicles and drove across the lake to the south shore before the ice road melted, because they realized if they didn't get out of there that spring, they'd be stuck there all summer with nothing to do, no jobs, no money, kids to feed. So it was just a parade of vehicles packed, everything strapped to the roofs and just parading across Lake Athabasca to the South Shore and out, and left everything, furniture, kids' toys, whatever they couldn't fit into the car or the truck that was just left behind.
And that in itself was an event. Never mind the mine closing, and of course Uranium City sort of falling apart as a town. But as you mentioned, Lake Athabasca, which is the 8th largest freshwater lake we have in Canada.
Yeah.
Driving across that would be, I don't know. Yes, I know they have ice roads, and it is the northern part of Saskatchewan, and it was in the wintertime, but you can't see the other side. It's vast, huge body of water. Just amazed me when I heard that story.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it alone. You definitely want to go in a posse, with a group, because if something happened and your car broke down or something, yeah, you'd be in trouble. You weren't walking back, and there was no taxis or tow trucks coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that segment with us, because you could really tell and gauge the emotional impact that seeing that firsthand provided you. So you said that it was cool to see. Now, your Feel the Bite segment, you wanted to talk about what exactly?
Yeah, so it touches on what Lisa brought up about having the right size equipment. We have a golf, if you're golfing, you carry a bunch of clubs because you have different clubs for different jobs. And it's like fishing rods. The other week I talked about the medium action spinning rod was sort of the jack of all trades. You could do a lot with that. And I have a pack rod that's a medium heavy spinning rod. And it fits in my suitcase. It comes in 5 or 6 pieces, depending if you want a 6'8" or a 7'4". And it's easy to take. And I brought that up there with me. And I was jigging a lot of lake trouts with Bondi baits, and it was just extraordinary, the amount of lake trout up there. And my guide said, Lawrence, just catch something under 10 pounds so I can feed you and your film crew, but I don't like to kill anything over 10 pounds. And I could not catch a fish under 10 pounds.
Wow.
They were 15, 18, 22, and I'm reeling them up with this medium heavy spinning rod. And I was it was a job to get them up. It was a job to get them up, but I got them up. I had a 4,000 size spinning reel with a 40-pound braid on it, so I could put some pressure on them. But then he took me into some of the bays where these 45, 50-inch pike were just sort of post-spawn, just sort of lounging around. And he gave me an inline spinner, and he said, I don't know if your rod will do that. And I said, well, let me try. I said, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, these fish, they're pretty obvious. We'll just see if they go for it. And, I just want to feel the bite. And so I threw it out there. He told me which way to point. I threw it out there, and he goes, oh, hang on. And all of a sudden, my lure just stopped. And that pike just T-boned that inline spinner. And my rod bent over. Well, I couldn't set the hook. The pike was just clutching onto that bait. I'm holding on to my rod at the other end, and there's no jerking the hook to set the hook, to pull the hook through the mouth, to get the hook to penetrate into the face of this pike in any way, shape, or form. and the pike's just swimming around waiting for the pressure to drop. So, he knew it was dead before they spit it out and swallow it head first. That's what pike do. They T-bone, kill it, spit it out, swallow it head first. But I'm pulling, and he's swimming around and just swimming around. And then finally, I guess the pike got fed up, and he just opened his mouth, and the bait popped out, and that was the end of that. Well, wow. I pulled that inline spinner, and it's bent like a clothespin, right? Like the wire, it's just bent almost like a U. But totally overpowered. Like that pike totally overpowered me. So, I mean, that was fun. I mean, we were just having some fun with it. But when you're seriously fishing and you're fishing around structure, and that fish can just swim away and have fun with you, and take you into, and then it breaks off, and then it's got a big hook in its face, and you're not going to get it out because it's behind a log somewhere. You want to avoid things like that. You want to avoid leaving fish tethered to your hooks. It's or just over exhausting them because it's just they are pulling, you pull them back, they pull, you pull them back, and by the time you get them to the boat, their heart's exploded pretty much. There's 100 reasons why you do not want to overdo it with a fish. Absolutely. And it's funny, we were up on Tasman, Scott Stewart and I, we visited the good folks up there, which is just north of Lake Athabasca. And it
was kind of cool because what really grabbed me or grabbed my attention was the level of engineering they had back then. Like, you think about this. This was how many years ago exactly? Uranium, the mining of uranium.
Oh yeah. Like that started in the 50s. That was the first uranium that came out of the ground there that went to the little boy bomb, right? That was dropped in Japan in the late 1940s.
And knowing that and the level of engineering for them to be able to cut out underground a tunnel which would allow water to pass from, I want to say it was Athabasca to Tasman. And they did this to generate hydro. I mean, that's 100 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And to be able to start a tunnel and be able to know where it was going to finish so that it would line up and the water would actually flow. Again, level of engineering was incredible. The whole prospecting industry is really cool, how they can find certain faults and how things outcrop through the rock. And I just find it all fascinating. It's obviously geology and something that's way over my head, but it was really cool. But being up there, and as you said, targeting lake trout, of course, the guides want to get you on all the big lake trout. And I always said, perhaps maybe it's the uranium that produced these large fish. Maybe that's what it is, because they are freakish in size. Like the lake in Tasman are just absolutely freakish.
Yeah,
size.
Extraordinary. Another story I was told is this one mine site we visited, the Gunther mine site, which is just one of the largest uranium mine sites in Saskatchewan. It was absolutely colossal. Like you look at this mine site, and it was like an industry with large industrial buildings and warehouses and office buildings and schools, and it had everything. And then they took one of the in 1980, they took the warehouse and they turned it into a fish processing plant. And then they equipped a First Nations community up there with gill nets and boats. And they hired a bunch to process the fish. So they were catching them, processing them, packing them on ice, flying them out of there, and then selling them in New York City. But the whole process could take 4 or 5 days to get them there to New York. And it didn't go that well. But they said it went for about a year and a half, 2 seasons, and then they just closed with no reason or rationale, no explanation. Everything was going like they were catching fish, selling fish, and then they just shut the whole thing down. And you wonder if someone said, "Hey, do you realize we're working in an abandoned uranium mine site with a whole tailings pond and slag heap that's just completely leaking and irradiating dust and radiation without any sort of defense or safeguards?" Yeah, you wonder if those people were what they were subjected to before someone woke up and said, "Hey, get these people out of here."
Yeah, no kidding. But speaking, and as I said, I'm just kidding in regards to the uranium having effect on the size of fish, but it was a joke. I had to say it because I'm thinking these things are enormous. And then, of course, you go into the back base, as you were talking about, and very interesting. And I know anybody who knows lake trout understands how aggressive these fish are. And the lake trout in Tasman, especially in Tasman, I don't know about other lakes, but those lake trout keep the pike in check. And you go into these back bays and you can tell exactly where the line is that's been drawn in the sand, where the lake trout roam and the pike don't go. Because you'll be catching a lake trout, then all of a sudden you'll catch pike. And then there's that line where the two don't seem to cross paths. But you get into those back bays and you talk about the size of pike that they have up there. And there was one in particular that I could have sworn was a log. I was casting to a log, and then the log moved. And I was lucky enough to grab it, but it was interesting that the one fish that was caught, the other one that was beside it was even bigger. It just, if you ever get a chance to go to northern Saskatchewan, whether it be Lake Athabasca or Tasman Lake, don't pass up the opportunity.
It's just extraordinary how big these pike can get. Like I've never heard of anything like it before in my life. I've never heard of anyone catching pike that size ever before.
Yeah.
And they're there in massive size fish. I guess they're old, and there's no look. It's really hard to get in here. You got to go by float plane, and you just don't drive up there. I mean, that's not somewhere you go to drive. So, on that whole Lake Athabasca, I think there was 2 fishing lodges and one was closed down.
Yeah.
So it's that's a huge lake with a lot of things going on there, but absolutely extraordinary fishery. The guides, they all use musky rods for lake trout fishing.
Yeah.
They're using 8-foot heavy action musky rods. And they said that's the minimum. That's the minimum because you're catching you definitely, like the average angler goes up there for a week. They'll definitely tie into a 35-pound lake trout at some point. And a good, there's 50-pound lake trout in the lake there around, and that's what they're gaming for. So you need that's not you're not going to do it with a medium action spinning rod. You need a musky rod when you're tying into a 50-pound lake trout.
No, you're 100% right. And, it's funny because the guides will target pike to feed for shore lunch, right? They don't really like the fact that, you drove all the way up, flew all the way up, spent all this money to get up here to fish for pike. You can fish pike anywhere. Yeah, but not pike that size.
No.
Like, dude, those things are huge. Anyway, it was the very last day. We're up there at Tazen. And we'd already caught our bucket list. I think, but my buddy Scott caught in his 60-pound lake trout. Mine was definitely into the 40s. So we had hit our bucket list, our PBs, and they said, what do you want to do? I said, well, you know what? That back bay that had all those big pike, I wouldn't mind targeting that. And on the very last day, last morning, you literally could see the plane coming overhead. I hooked into a PB pike, and I tell you, what a trip! What a lake! What a fishery! I highly recommend anybody to get the chance. Do it. Spend the money. It's worth it. And I know they have some in-house specials Tazen does right now that they're running for Canadians because, of course, let's face it, a lot of our American money is not going to be seeing any of our outfitters anytime soon with that border closed and travel restrictions in place. So by all means, take the opportunity. If they're going to discount your trip and provide us Canadians a chance to experience it, do it, man. Do it.
Oh yeah. And look, I don't want to give the wrong impression. The whole place isn't glowing hot like a radioactive meltdown, right? I mean, there's 80 uranium mines. A good chunk of those were made with a shovel and a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
There's not that many that were big, and it's such a big country. It's such a big country. You can walk around or drive around your boat for a long time. You won't see anything. You won't see anything like this. So it's not like the whole north of Saskatchewan's contaminated with radiation. No. I don't want to give that impression. No, it's just there's some industry that shouldn't have been allowed to walk away. That there's we need a plan. You're going to take something out of the ground. You need to put it back the way you found it. Right. That's all I'm saying.
And I would like to think that we're getting better at it than we did back in that time. So good on you for pointing that out. What's upcoming, Lawrence? What are you doing this week?
Well, we've got a new issue of Bluefish News going to come out next Monday, a week today. So it's all about sturgeon. And talk to one of the top sturgeon guides on the west coast of Canada who's heading up the whole sturgeon conservation movement and the juvenile sturgeon tagging program. Had a whole bunch of junior high school kids out on the boats tagging juvenile sturgeon. And so we've got a nice interview with him. We've got all sorts of articles about sturgeon and the rivers and the conservation movement. So that's I look forward to talking to you about that next Monday. We'll have some fun with that.
Right on, my friend. Well, listen, as always, I appreciate everything that you bring to us and a new perspective, especially with that lead-in video that you shared. You can tell that your passion isn't just for angling, but everything that is associated with it. And keep doing what you do best, bud.
Thanks, Scotty. You too, man. Keep it up. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. You take care, Lawrence. So just before we bring in our infamous J-Dog, Jason Barnucz, I'm just looking for it. Where is it? There it is. Here is a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have. Thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, Power Bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Well, we got the whole squad, and do I ask, is Heather tied up somewhere?
Heather's actually upstairs working. She's got a job interview.
Oh,
She's working, but she's got something coming up maybe. So she's working on. She's doing some studying. So Stephanie heard it was ladies' night, so she's been listening in all night. So,
well, are you looking to target Muskie now, Steph, based on what you heard?
well, she did bring her giant water bottle. I think a few CFNers have seen my cup that Heather had made me for Christmas. So this is Stephanie's muskie-sized water bottle. So, and she's been eating lots of bait down here while we've been.
I love that comment that Lisa came out with. You know, what do you mean? Everything else is bait. I love that comment. It was wicked.
I have so many. Okay, so I'm not a diehard muskie angler. I love catching them when I catch them, but I don't target them. It's honestly it's such a species that you like. I think it's a species I'm a little scared to get into, because I think once I really get into them, I will stop fishing for other things that I fish for, because I think they are a really cool species, and I fully understand the addiction of muskies. I get it, and you know, hearing Lisa talk, she's just another muskie head. You know, like we can talk about. You know, she mentioned a bunch of muskie heads tonight, and we know lots of them out there. And you know, just I love hearing muskie anglers talk, because they're so focused. They're so focused. It's amazing, truly amazing.
Listen, that back wall with all the baits.
Oh,
that is a year's salary for me. So I tell you, I tip my hat to anybody who goes after muskie and targets muskie, because you're spending an awful lot of money to do so. And the thing that I find so amazing is that they spend that kind of money to catch a fish, hold it up, take a photo, and release it. So they are a rare breed of angler, and I respect the heck out of all of them.
You know what's funny though, like so sometimes, Scotty, I have ideas of what I'm going to talk about, and sometimes they develop it as I listen to everybody talk. And you know, I want to reflect on Rob Cadeau for a little bit, and I was going to do that, but I'm going to thank Lisa. I have a memory of Rob that I'm going to share, and Lisa mentioned somebody that's involved in that memory before I heard Lisa talk. So, like, I don't know, Rob, I got goosebumps right now, man. I'm going to tell this story. So, if anyone out there who, you know, so I like to do seminars. Big Jim does seminars. Lawrence does seminars. Rob did seminars. Brent Bocek did seminars. And there's all kinds of great seminar speakers. But sometimes you go to a seminar event and there's just not much of a crowd there. So the only guys and girls sitting watching your seminar is the other seminar speakers. You know where I'm going with this.
Yep, absolutely.
So one weekend a few years ago, I was up at Bass Pro Shops for their spring sale at Vaughan Mills, and I was standing around talking with Rob and Brent Bocek. And I have a picture somewhere, I think Brent took it, of Rob and I. It's either Rob and I or him or maybe Brent and I, and we got a couple of chairs, like, you know, like old wrestling style, where they'd pick up the chair and smack each other. We're kind of posing. Because Rob's like, this is just like wrestlers. Like, all these big guys do seminars, but we're all like, I don't know. We were making like ravishing Ric Flair. We're making comments, and, you know, Junkyard Dog and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And so that's my memory of Rob. And every time I saw Rob after that, we made wrestling jokes all the time. And as an 80s kid, I grew up watching wrestling, Saturday morning cartoons, even, like, you know, Hulk Hogan and all the Andre the Giant, right? So yeah, so hearing Lisa mention Brent's name was funny, because that's one of my favorite Rob memories, is that day at Bass Pro Shops with Brent Bocek. So there you go. Like, so,
you know, and there's so many of those kind of stories that I would love to have a celebration of life where everybody would be able to tell, because you're so right, Jay. The Rob stories go on and on and on, and they always include a lot of fun. and a lot of laughs. So I could totally get that. Christina wants to know, did Stephanie get her birthday perch feast?
You can talk.
Yes, I did.
Fantastic. There you go.
And how was it?
It was delicious.
That's awesome. Well, listen, and to both of you, Trevor and Stephanie, we are absolutely amazed at how passionate and how eager you guys are as anglers to get out there and enjoy what we've been enjoying for many years. But to be able to live and go back and live through you two is really cool, because when we look at you, we see ourselves in the mirror when we were your age. So I think it's so awesome to see you guys going out and sharing some time with your mom and your dad and catching some wicked fish. And congratulations to you, Trevor, on that personal best sucker that you caught on the weekend.
Oh, well, and what's funny is we were out fishing with our good friends, the Raytrowskis, who we seem to fish with a lot, ever since, especially since COVID started, which is great. You know, we weighed that fish. I'm curious how much it weighed at work, and I'm like, that's a pretty big. I'm gonna weigh it, and it weighed just under 8 pounds. It was like 7.92, I think. And I checked the Ontario record for silver red horse. It's like 9.5 pounds.
Whoa!
So, yeah, I'm like, that's about as big as they get, Trevor. So now, you know what he's thinking now. Now he has a plan. So. So we'll see.
Was it spitting eggs out by chance when you lifted it up?
Yeah, so they aren't quite spawning yet, and that's what it's been great. Actually, it was great getting out yesterday with Alicia and TJ and another friend of ours, Jay Pierce from London. You know, and we got out with them, and so I was curious what the water temperatures were, and the water temperatures were we were on the Thames River. It was in the mid 40s. I looked it up. They have a station just below London. You can check the water temperature, and it was warmer than I thought. But the white suckers are spawning heavy right now. They're full of eggs and sperm, and the shortheads and the silvers are there, but they're not spawning yet. They will soon. And suckers don't all spawn at the same time. They kind of go through this basically from now till June. All these different sucker species will sort of spawn in little windows of time, as they're all kind of temperature dependent. There is some overlap, but yeah, so it was neat to catch. Trevor got 4 species yesterday. He got a golden red horse, short-head red horse, silver red horse, and a white sucker yesterday. So, wow. Yeah, pretty cool.
Can you share, Trevor, with the rest of us who would love to also catch a personal best sucker, what it was that you were using to catch that fish?
Oh, geez. Well,
it's so basic.
What were you using?
So we were just using a basic Carolina rig, but you can use whatever weight you want. We were using a pyramid weight.
Yeah.
So it's just like a kind of pretty much a triangle weight with a 2 ounce.
2 ounce weight, yeah.
And a size 3 circle hook with worms.
That's it.
Now, are they just regular worms, Trevor?
Now,
what's the joke? What's the joke? Come, there's an inside joke here. We'll share it with CFN. Go ahead.
We call them snakes.
The biggest the worms, the better. Snakes.
Makes sense. Big bait, big fish. I get it. 100%.
Yeah. It's honestly the simplest rig, and it's what's nice about those circle hooks. They get like a size 2/0 or a size 3/0 circle hook on those big suckers. Is there? If you get one on, like, and they're pretty easy to hook when they're in the area. That hook is right through their top lip every single time. It's so easy. You will, you know, with live bait, you risk harming fish, right? And so it's so nice to have those circle hooks, and they're hard to get out. Like, you need a set of pliers, but it's hooked perfectly every time. It's never deep hooked. I can't stress enough about, if you're going to use live bait, especially in the spring for suckers, or we're going to get into channel cats soon too. You know, a good circle hook. You know, and I think a 2/0, 3/0 is good for suckers, and for cats, it also depends on the size of the bait, not just the size of the fish. So, you know, 5/0 up to a 6 or 7. Even I use some 8/0 hooks for some of the big cut bait. So it's it's a simple way to fish, man. It's sitting on the bank watching the cobra chickens watching you. You know,
and speaking of banks and on the rivers. I would imagine the three of you are pretty excited that the incoming rain that's coming by the end of the week is going to perhaps spawn the run, as they say.
Well, yeah, like the river's quite. It's not low right now, but on a sort of a relative sense to spring, it's low. The Thames, we didn't fish the Thames for the closing of walleye. Here's the funny part: we were catching jumbo perch a week ago. Okay, on Lake Simcoe.
Yeah.
So we were using a 30-inch rod, and then yesterday we were using an 8-foot rod. A week after we were catching jumbos, and we went from -10 with the wind chill. It was even colder in the morning. Now yesterday it was 16 degrees, and getting a suntan. Like it's quite the change. But yeah, we had a really good time. But I'm not going to say it was all successful weekend. We went out to the Upper Niagara on Saturday with Brent Bocek and Dan, his buddy Dan. And Dan, Lisa mentioned them in her update. And I'm going to share a couple links here because Brent's working on a new television show. He's got a few episodes out. It's called Setting the Hook with Brent Bocek, and you can check out his YouTube channel. And Lisa mentioned a couple of episodes that he's done with her and John Anderson, and if those aren't up on those channels, it'll be up there soon. And you know what? I'm going to just give a real shout out to my buddy Dan over at Live to Fish. He's such a great guy. He's a photographer, videographer. He's working with Brent on this project. He worked with Lisa and John out in the Ottawa River. So you know what? If you guys can, go click on their websites, on their Facebook pages, give them a like. They're just good. Brent's a fellow Berkeley Pro staff, but I've known Brent much longer than that, and he's just a good guy. A lot of his your Grammy's watching, Beverly, Heather's mom. Hi, Bev. And so they're just good guys, and we went up to the Upper Niagara and we got skunked. We were dodging icebergs. They let the ice boom out on Thursday. There's still ice coming down the river, and the water temperatures were 36, 37. It's still pretty cold. Like, those spring walleye, and they're not in the Upper Niagara. The Lower Niagara is fishing well. We wanted to try the upper, and it just didn't go well. But we got some, the sun was so nice, Scott, that Dan got some awesome drone footage. Like you could see down. We could see the bottom in the river easily 20 feet of water. Like clearly, I could count the rocks. I could count the boulders in 20 feet. Yeah, it was amazing.
You're touching on a subject that I wanted to talk about, and a friend of mine, Donald Stokes, reached out to me in regards to the state of the Napanee River, and it's a concern of mine. Just up at my place, a lot of the, I would say, prolific and healthy spawning grounds are dry. They're unfortunately not submerged, and the Napanee, the water apparently is down there too, and there's a lot of spawning grounds that are not going to be utilized by the walleye this year unless we get a good dosing of rain. It's amazing to me to think that this time last year we were talking about water levels that were exceeding record heights.
Yeah.
And now a year later, it looks as if we're going.
Yeah, I saw some posts up on either Bay of Quinte or Lake Ontario that they got like low water advisories, like people launching boats, like ramps are dry.
Yeah.
And the last, not even last year, the last like 4 or 5 years, like I can think of a few bass tournaments in Bay of Quinte that we had to move locations that I was helping out with because of the high water. Like it was dangerous to launch boats, and then to think now in the Great Lakes, we typically don't see a high water until usually it's in June. So that's when the lakes peak. So the International Joint Commission, and I don't know, this isn't my background with water management, but the International Joint Commission manages water levels in the Great Lakes. And so what we see is we actually see they run it like a dam. It's a dam. It's a controlled system, right? So they want to see the water leave. They want to drop it down a little bit because they know all that snow melt up in Superior and further north, it's going to come down our way and it's going to come up. And usually the water levels peak in June. And so I'm just really curious and almost a little disappointed in the fact that how did we let it get so low that it's going to impact spawning fish? See, in the U.S., Scotty, there's so many reservoirs that struggle with spawning habitat.
Yeah.
Like colleagues of mine who are conservation directors with bass, they fight tooth and nail to get reservoirs, because reservoirs are used for water control. That's it. Fishing is not the primary use for most of these reservoirs. And so they draw them down, and in a lot of cases they have very very little spawning habitat for walleye, for bass, for you name the fish that would spawn in the spring, especially. Yeah. And they fight tooth and nail to increase and improve the habitat. Whereas up here, we have ample natural habitat. Like our fisheries up here we can all complain about quality of fisheries. We have it really good. It still doesn't mean that we can't manage it better. So hearing about these low water levels in Lake Ontario, I know it's going to directly impact the Moira, the Napanee, all those river systems, because those really are all impacted, especially right now. So some rain's going to help, but the rain won't. Man, we'll need a lot of rain, Scotty, to bring those water levels up. Well, a lot of rain. It's not going to come like that, I don't think.
I don't either. And it's discouraging because I thought we got a good snowpack this year, but obviously it wasn't enough. I at this point in this stage, I was expecting to hear flooding, not the exact opposite, which is a concern for dried up riverbeds and spawning habitat, which it is concerning. But hopefully we get the rain that we need, and all of a sudden we get a freak downpour that'll wet things up. But I know these fish are getting ready to spawn, and with the suckers in some of the rivers here in the south, it's right around the corner.
Yeah, and looking at some of the rivers in southwestern Ontario, like the Thames and the Grand, water levels look good. Typical spring water levels. Last weekend was the end of the freshet. So the Thames was really high last weekend, and I was high even a few days before the weekend, and it stayed high longer than normal. And I think that demonstrates how much snow we got this year, right? So up in the headwaters of the Thames, like up north of St. Mary's and that, like all that melted, and so that's done now. So now we're sort of in this. We're getting into like spring or almost like summer flows now, where we're going to get the odd storm, but the melt is done. But the melt's not done up north yet, and we still see, I'm seeing reports of ice fishing still going on up in Thunder Bay and stuff. There's still lots of snow cover up there. Friends of mine in Sudbury are sun tanning on their deck, but there's still 2 feet of snow in their backyard, right? So, all that meltwater it comes our way.
Absolutely. Here's a question for Trevor. I have a question for Trevor. Do you see yourself, Trevor, in the future as a tournament angler with all the passion and competitive nature that you possess?
I don't know. I might. He wants me to do guiding up north at this one lake near James Bay, but I might fish a couple tournaments, and I don't know yet, but we'll have to see when.
He needs a job. He needs a job first.
Yeah, don't we all? But absolutely, with your competitive nature and of course your passion for angling, I know I speak on behalf of all CFN. It's going to be interesting to see where you and Steph end up with when it comes to angling. Is it something that's just going to be a favorite pastime, or is it something that you're going to pursue and perhaps get into the line of work that your dad is?
Well, I think like he's been talking about buying a kayak. He likes the idea of kayak tournaments because it's something that's easy for him to do. He's admitted he wants to kind of do what Dad does, and I said to him, I want you to really think about that. It's a long road. It's a long road. And Scotty, how many people have gone through the Fleming and university route, and then it's a long time coming. If you're lucky enough to make a career of it, right?
It is tough, Trevor, and trust me, when you get the passion for fish the way your dad and I have, it almost seems like there's nothing else to do but to follow the path that your dad has. I couldn't financially. I couldn't. I needed to get into work right away, but I was able to revisit it. And luckily enough, there are folks like your dad around that are able to point private, go-getters like myself to do the right thing and not learn by trial and error that there's actually knowledge out there, that there's all kinds of papers, all kinds of research programs that have gone on. And as I said, I really tip my hat to guys like your dad who have spent the time to be able to post stuff like that and share it with the masses, so that folks like me who want to take it to the next level have the ability to do so, and at least the knowledge. But back then it was tough. Most of all of the credibility was coming from the States. If I wanted to know anything about raising walleye, believe it or not, it wasn't as available as you might think here in Canada. A lot of the resources was on the stateside.
And since the 90s, that's when I finished. Like, most of my education was most of my post-secondary education was in the mid to late 90s. Scotty, we've had so many changes in government in terms of policy. So Species at Risk Act and all these different acts that have come in that have given jobs to people who want to work in the natural resources field, not just fish, but forestry, wildlife.
Yeah.
There's so many more opportunities now than there was back in the 90s, like big time. And, but it's also more competitive because there's more people going through university. So if anyone's listening right now, it's a competitive market. There's a lot of people applying for jobs who have, back when you could get a job in the 90s, you could get this job with a 3-year technician college diploma. Now you need a master's degree.
Yeah.
It's 20 years after the fact, though, 25 years, right? So it's really competitive now. But if you have the drive, the opportunities are there.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say back in the 90s, there was a little bit more money being thrown at our natural resources and what have you. John Snoblin was our minister at the time. And since him, I have not seen the level of dedication financially to our natural resources, namely fisheries, as it was back then. So again, he unfortunately was the last of the true devoted ministers that we had when it came to funding expenditures and programs like that. We haven't seen it, and obviously because we just don't have the money.
Yeah, it's tough. I even if anyone's out there, follow the Ontario Conservation Officers Facebook page, and one of the COs who posts on there regularly is Ron Arnold. He's a friend of mine. He's a dedicated conservation officer, a very outspoken conservation officer. And go look up the Ontario Conservation Officers Facebook page. And I really believe that we need to support our conservation officers. And I'm not just talking about just having more patrols out there. We just need more professionals on the landscape, and the COs are just people we need more of out there. And it's not that we don't have a lot of COs. There actually are decent numbers of COs out there, but the resources aren't there for them, for all the travel. And these COs are covering massive areas. So we do need more and more resources. And it's tough. And you know what, Scotty, unfortunately, it's not going to get any easier with the pandemic, because governments are going to be running these deficits for a long time. It's going to affect him more than you and me.
I was just going to say that, unfortunately, Trevor, and I say this, we apologize. Our generation, unfortunately, can't fix it. And we've passed the mess on to your generation. And I apologize for that. I wish we didn't have to do that, but we are literally spending your money today.
And he's heard this from me. He doesn't understand this as much right now, but
No, I don't.
but these are conversations that Heather and I have with Trevor and Stephanie. So because it's going to be a tough go for them for the next little while. But so maybe instead of thinking of buying a bass boat, let's buy kayaks. Which a lot of people are doing. And geez, Scotty, so many people are out fishing right now. Even on the weekend, so many people are fishing. And yeah, we can complain about it because all the spots are getting full of people, but yeah, you know what? I think it's fantastic that everyone's out fishing. I say it every week here, but I'm a broken record. But I love seeing people out fishing. And we as anglers have a responsibility to everybody out there to educate them. Like the Thames River is close to walleye fishing right now. It's open to pike fishing. We know there's people who like to bend the rules. But are they bending the rules on purpose? Or are they just out there going fishing because they don't know the regulations? Like there's an education piece here that's really important no matter where we go in Ontario or beyond Ontario, anywhere you go fishing. I believe that we need to educate people first before we criticize them. And I'm getting a little long in the tooth of the Facebook nastiness going on out there in the social media. And I know I kind of ignore it for the most part, but we need to educate people, you know, and there's etiquette too. I see Alicia's comment about people casting over her line. So, you know, you can still go in a rural area and someone still manages to cast over Alicia's line. I might have cast over her line once. I'm just not talking about me, but, but you know, like, I just think that we just need to really help each other out because this is not going anywhere. And even when COVID's done, man, all these anglers are going to keep fishing. So it's great. So we just got to educate them. We got to educate anglers and this nice weather. This nice weather for anglers is like speeders. How many OPP do you see out when the weather's nice? Lots.
I tell you, the first day I think was Friday. We saw the bikes out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could go on and on, but you're 100% right. You know it's bike season when you hear the roar coming up beside you in a 60 zone, and he's doing, you know, Mach 1. You know, or they're weaving in the center line of traffic, you know, at a red light. Like, oh, guys, man.
Oh, just even commuting into work today. Like, you know, I drive so much that I have a heavy foot, but I use cruise control a lot because of my heavy foot. So as I've aged, I've learned like it's like 10 or 15 over. That's it. Because I just know, especially when the sun's shining. And the sun's shining today and people are flying by, and then you get around the corner and you see the cherries. You're like, nah, buddy, you shouldn't have passed me. I'm sorry, man. But anglers are like that too. Like the sun comes out, everybody comes out, you know, and it's nice to see that celebration. But at the same time, it's everyone, you know, we have to respect each other and enjoy our time out there because there's going to be limited space sometimes. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is the fake spring. This is fake. Everyone understand that. We are like 12 degrees above seasonal right now, maybe 15 degrees above seasonal. Mm-hmm. We're going to go back into real spring this weekend.
Yes.
And then we'll see what happens. But, you know, for us going forward, I just made the decision today that I'm going to take April break. Are we calling it April break now? Is it April break?
Yeah.
So I'm taking April break off work. I've said I'm taking the week off, and I'm praying for nice weather. So we are doing some serious fishing April break.
Right on. Well, listen, when you say serious, I think that's all you three do is serious fishing in the header as well. So if you're saying serious, I'm scared. Never mind the fish.
Well, I have to tell you, I was hooming and hawing about it, but then yesterday, the Fish Online group in London and the Thames River Anglers, they're going to do a little fundraiser. They're running a channel cat tournament for 3 weeks, it's going to start March 29th. It's going to go till the end of, I think, to April 16th, the end of the spring break. So I said, so last night I have a blister. Right there. You know what that's from? That's from cutting up cut bait last night after being on the Thames. Wow. When I'm sitting there on the river and I'm reading about this tournament, I'm like, yeah, let's just bring some of those white suckers home. I think Dad's gonna need some cut bait for our winning pattern.
For targeting cats, is it creek chub, or is it sucker, or is it shrimp? Is it hot dog, or you don't want to say?
No. So here's the thing. I think in the spring, so worms work great year round. The big old dew worm. But I think in the spring, especially, and catfish are just like a lot of other species. The big ones come in first. So In a lot of the rivers in southern Ontario, the big cats come in, and the big ones come in first, and they come in April. And I think cut bait is probably the best bait for those big cats. I do like shrimp. I'm going to work on a new shrimp. I like to use a lot in the summer, but I'm working on a new technique that I'm actually going to use chicken livers, which I've used before, but I'm going to tie them into big row bags using using tubular bandages. I talked to a guy down south who uses this, so I'll do. There's been a lot of requests for me to do some cat fishing content, so I'm going to. I might start to do some sort of tips here in our little office here, and we might start doing some catfishing tips and some baits that we're going to use. But yeah, but in the spring, the bigger the bait, the better. And you don't have to. I don't stink it up. Like, I don't let my suckers rot. I clean them when they're fresh, and a good chunk of cut bait that's fresh is good sucker bait or good catfish bait. But don't let it hang on there all day. Change your bait. Scotty, if you're out walleye fishing and you do want to drag a worm on a worm harness or something like that, you're not going to drag that thing for an hour. You're going to drag it for probably 10, 15 minutes. It's going to start to get kind of falling apart, and you're going to put a fresh one on there. Because you put a fresh worm on there, chances are you're going to get bit right away. Like it honestly, and even with the suckers yesterday, you change the worm, you're going to get bit. They love the fresher, the better. So,
well, and I'm sure that if Gord Pizer was here, he would probably back us up when we say that, the enzymes and scent that a lively bait gives off is a lot different than that of one that is dead and not so lively. And you want those enzymes, you want that chemical reaction, and of course the scent that fish hone in on. Because how many times have you seen? I've seen it on the underwater camera thousands of times, where you're jigging and you've drawn in that fish and he's smelling it, he licks it, and it's like, that's not what I expected it to be. And he gone.
Look at last year with all the Berkeley Max scent went crazy last year, right? No one could even get it because it's that scent.
Yeah.
And with catfish, that is their main receptor for eating. Like those big barbels on its head, they are literally tasting the water around them. Like catfish taste the water. And so scent to them is more important than any other receptor, more than sight, more than feel. It is taste. And there's literally, those barbels are sampling the water and tasting that water. So fresher the better. And one of the things, like the best bait to use, like if you can get a small, I don't even have something like small enough. Like, I don't know. Pass me this can.
Now, do you salt any of your cut bait, Jay?
No, it's all fresh. So, this is, I got a sticky keyboard last week, so I had to buy a can of this crap. But okay, so let's say you got a white sucker like that big, okay, like a big tube. I like to just take it and I just section them, right? Where am I going?
Cut it into steaks?
Literally, you're staking it. You're staking it up, and even a smaller one than that. Like if you can get a big creek chub or a small white sucker, and the head, oh man, that is the bomb. The bomb.
The filet mignon, as they would say.
You put a big old creek chub head, and I mean, like, I'm not talking the itty bitty mud minnows. I'm talking a good 6-inch creek chub, cut her in half, throw that head on a 7/0 circle hook with some 40-pound leader, and you bomb it out there in that deep hole. You hang on. He got dragged in the water last year by a 12-pounder. He did.
Now it was muddy, but yes, I did.
He was fighting this fish. This is no joke. In the mud, I grabbed him by his waders as he's fighting this fish because it was pulling. He was sliding down the hill into the river. So
now, do you like the bell sinker or a pyramid sinker as your weight?
You know what? I like the pyramid sinkers. Anything that's not going to move. Gotcha. So why I like the pyramid sinkers is I use a sliding snap. And so what I do is I pre-tie everything at home, and then I actually hook the weight onto the snap. I don't like to travel with my rods with like 3 and 4 and 5 ounce weights dangling off it. Like, I think it's hard, even though I'm using my ugly sticks, which are pretty bulletproof. I don't like that. And then I can change the weight if I get there. And you know, if I take the time to thread the weight on the line, and I tie that knot just perfect, and everything's nice with my swivel and my beads and all that. And then you get there and you're like, oh, I don't need a 3 ounce weight. I can get away with a 1 ounce weight. But having that sliding clip, I can change that weight on the fly. So I can go from fishing the riffle over here to the pool down here just by changing my weight. And I'm not even moving. I'm just casting here, casting here, casting here. I'm just changing my weight because I want to use the smallest weight I can get away with so my bait's not moving.
Gotcha.
Because even when the catfish picks it up, they will feel the weight. I know it slides, but they feel resistance. Like, they feel it. So use the lightest weight you can get away with. It also helps with casting and stuff. But, you know, sometimes if it's flowing hard, you need a good 5 and 6 ounce weight. That's why I use such heavy rods. People see my rods, they're like, what do you need a rod that heavy for? I'm like, and musky fishing is like that, right? Where it's like, I'm throwing a 6 ounce weight on this thing. There's a reason why that rod is beefy. But, you know, I typically am using 3 and 4 ounce weights most of the time for channel cats. That's very, very common.
Curtis asks a great question. This is a fantastic. Thanks so much for asking this, Curtis.
Oh, okay.
Which suckers can you keep, and which ones can you not?
Okay, I'll ask Trevor because we've had this discussion driving back and forth. Okay, Trevor, this is your test. What suckers? Tell Curtis what suckers he can use for bait legally in Ontario.
So I remember 3. So whites.
Yep.
Silvers.
Yep. Silver.
Red horse.
Yep.
And short heads, right?
Yeah, short-head red horse.
Yeah.
You can also use long nose sucker, which are common further north. But those are the 4 suckers you can use for bait in Ontario. But the trouble is, and I'm going to caution everyone out there, is that red horse suckers are very similar, the different species. So you have to know how to tell them apart. They used to have golden red horse on the list and greater red horse on the list. They took them off because graders very much resemble river red horse. And I know I'm talking like in a foreign language right now to some people, but graders resemble rivers, which are endangered, and goldens resemble blacks, which are also endangered. So, you know what we'll do is, and I've a couple folks to me, we should do a catfish night, Scotty. Absolutely. At some point.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about bait and we'll talk about setups.
That's
and
one question I do have for you when it comes to the cutting of your bait. I know out on the ice, it's the wrong thing to fillet a fish on the ice and eat it, and that whole stigma. Is it a good practice to take your cut bait home to process and get ready, than to do it there on the river's bank or river's edge?
Yeah. So I've done it on the fly because let's say I'm out of cut bait and it's, you'll go catfishing, and let's say we'll each bring a rod.
Right.
And I might put out a rod with a worm and a rod with a cut bait because I need another sucker for some cut bait. We might do that. And then I have that sucker and I'll use that sucker that day. I bring a little cooler, and I have an ice pack in there with my worms and with my cut bait, because you want your bait as fresh as possible. If you're going to be out there on a 25-degree day and your worms are do not put the worm container out in the sun. Keep it cold. Keep those worms cold. Keep that bait fresh. I bring a little cutting board, and I have a little like a 6-inch fillet knife, and I will prepare suckers as I need them. I prefer to bring it with me though. Like I like to bring it home, although the kitchen was full of sucker scales this morning, so that really didn't go over very well.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah. But it was nice to be at home because so the big suckers that I was cutting up last night, the big white suckers, even the steaks are still like that big. So, but I'll get 4 pieces of cut bait out of one sucker steak. But but you're cutting through the bone. That's why I got the blister, because I'm taking that big knife and I'm sharpening it between fish, because I have to get. I'm literally hacking through the bone, and I want bone in the cut bait because it gives something to hook to hold on to. I don't mind the ribs and stuff like that. Keep it in there. I want that hook to hold something. But I prefer cutting it up at home and having it fresh, because you cut up that sucker at the river, Scotty, and it starts to rot in the sun. Okay. And then what do? You're going to take it home and put this, like, it's, I don't know.
No, I totally agree.
Go fishing now. Get your cut bait if that's what you want to do. But a bag of uncooked shrimp in a frozen, like, that is another cut. That's another bait. So my little dude, we bring 2 coolers. There's lunch and there's bait, and we bring 2. And everything, it's gourmet, man. The cats, they like me. It's gourmet. They get fresh sushi, they get fresh shrimp, and I guess worms are part of their gourmet diet. But yeah, or snakes.
That has definitely been the theme. Not only are we paying our regards to Rob Cadeau, but we have been talking sushi, and more.
Oh yeah,
all night.
Dude, I drove to work today, and I drove past. I went to Bill's Bait to get some worms. I had to get some snakes from Bill's Bait in Hamilton. And I drove by August 8 Sushi, which is right at the Link and the Upper James Street. Man, I miss sushi. Yeah. I miss it a lot. Like, I can scare a sushi restaurant. I can scare them. and we have had some epic sushi lunches at August 8. There's actually one in Hamilton, one in Burlington, and we have punished the sushi there. It is so good. I missed it. That is one thing. Take fishing and everything aside. With work, we don't go for sushi all the time, but like one lunch a month we go out and it's sushi, and it is not pleasant, but it is so good. That's God.
Well, listen, guys, thanks so much for sticking around, and
thanks everyone.
I like the idea of doing a catfish show. Hopefully we'll get Trevor involved. And I will say this, Trevor, to you, we need your help going forward. Your dad and I and the rest of CFN can only do so much, but you, as the next generation of anglers, we need you to toe the line when it becomes your time to spread the word on making sure that our fisheries stay intact. People are being responsible when they're angling, and taking care of our environment, because as I said, without you guys coming up through the ranks, the future doesn't look as bright as it should. So
yeah, I got 2 things. One, yes, and I think this is why social media is a good thing, because that gets that word out there, and well, you want that word to spread, and that can spread through a bunch of people and inspire the people to keep going. Doesn't matter what it is, fishing, whatever. And well, before we go, I gotta thank Alicia, cause so she was saving our spot there at the river, and she gave us the good spot, and also provided us with our snakes. So
yeah, we didn't have any bait. So Alicia and TJ, thanks for the snakes yesterday. And Alicia took some heat from a local, because she was kind of saving a spot for us to stand on the riverbank. So Alicia and TJ, thank you very much for your support as always. And Trevor pretty much caught a fish on his first cast in Alicia's spot. So
awesome.
Yeah, awesome. But CFN, thanks everyone. It was a great show. As usual, we went way over time, but thanks everybody, and we'll see you next Monday.
And in the words of Trevor, it was worth it. Right on, guys. We'll see you later. Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Now, one thing before we go, guys, this is a really cool aspect to our CFN community that I want to share with all of you. Really appreciate everyone who's joined us tonight. Lisa, Yvonne, for bringing in Lisa, as well as Jim and Lawrence, and of course, Jay, Trevor, and Stephanie. It's so cool that we're able to do this each and every week, but this is really, really cool. And I want to share this with you. If you are a tackle producer and you're part of the CFN community, Richard Dunlap presented me an option for you guys, an opportunity, I should say, with a tackle store in the Norway area, in the country of Norway. His name is Jan. I'm not going to say the rest because I'm going to absolutely butcher it, but let me share you his logo because this is actually really cool. So if you are a tackle producer and you are looking to possibly broaden your commercial base and customer base, there is a company, and his name is Jan, that's very interested in purchasing some of your products to sell in their tackle store. So I know Richard Dunlop has sold a bunch of C4 lures, and he presented this to me today as an opportunity for any tackle producer that is currently producing tackle and maybe wants to improve their customer base. Get in touch with Jan. It's an opportunity, a lifetime of an opportunity, and hopefully we can put some money in your pocket and spread the word on your product. But it's a very cool opportunity that Richard has brought forward to us. And as I said, this is the logo. That is the website. So www.leris.no. Contact Jan and see if he can house some of your bait. In the meantime, guys, thanks so much for joining us this Monday, as you do every Monday. We really appreciate the support. And we couldn't do what we're doing without all of you. You all have a stake in it. You all have skin, as they say in the game, and we appreciate every last follicle of it. To the Cadeau family, again, we dedicated this show to you guys who are currently mourning the loss of our good buddy Rob. We're going to miss him too, and our thoughts and prayers are with you guys in hopes that there are brighter days ahead. In the meantime, thanks to all of you. Stay safe. We will see you tomorrow, as we're going to be giving out, Michael and I are going to be giving out more prizes to the Winter Fish Fest. Thanks so much for our good buddy, Dwayne Bennett, who sent me this from Dynamite Plastics. We have a plethora of stuff to go through tomorrow. And then, of course, Tim Allard on Thursday at 7:30. He's going to be joining me with Jim. It's going to be an incredible week. Lots of info, lots of tips, tricks, and techniques. And I think it's awesome that we're able to share it with you guys. Take care. Enjoy your week. All the best, my friends. Peace.